The story opens on a bedroom. At 5:15, the alarm clock started ringing in the morning. The sound echoed through the room as the protagonist, Magnus, stayed in bed after spending the whole night working and missing the last train. Still sleepy, he finally started to get up as he realized the morning had already begun. Maikawa Akihiro, systems engineer, wakes early in the morning, feeling drained. After checking his phone, he spots an alert about a system failure, but realizes he hasn't been called in. With a flicker of relief, he gets ready to start his day. Outside, the streets are already alive, lights blazing, people moving, and the biting winter air sweeps into the room. As the year draws to a close, he steels himself for another routine, another monotonous workday. Akihiro repeats the same rhythm every day. Clock in, work, head back home on the last train, eat alone, then sleep. His life has settled into a quiet loop of waking, going, and doing the same things over and over. When he looks back on the past few years, he sees almost nothing has changed, except that he talks to himself more often and that he feels older. With no major events to break the pattern, he assumes this uneventful routine will carry on for many more years. When Akihiro steps out of his apartment to go to work, something suddenly snags his attention. Startled, he stops in the doorway, feeling instinctively that something strange has appeared right outside his home. Akihiro suddenly finds himself standing in a strange white space. Shocked and disoriented, he turns his head to look around, only to realize the door behind him has vanished. Panic starts to rise as he scrambles to make sense of what's happening. As he desperately demands an explanation and tries to seize the meaning of what's happening, mysterious notifications bloom before his eyes. A skill called Sage is granted, designed to sharpen his situational awareness. Then, after he requests information about his current condition, another ability, Perception, follows. As Akihiro fights to make sense of the situation, more system messages roll in, granting him a new skill called Acquisition, letting him pull in information and experience. A mysterious presence identifies itself as an interface, responsible for sending people from one place to another. Confused and completely overwhelmed, Akihiro insists that he was only on his way to work and demands to be returned to where he came from. After demanding to return home, the mysterious interface simply sends him away, wishing him a safe journey. Moments later, Akihiro awakens in a quiet, natural place. Soil-scented air fills his lungs, and the forest rustles all around him. The familiar smell and atmosphere tug him back to the mountains he once visited with his grandfather. Nostalgia crashes in like a wave. Memories from Akihiro's childhood begin to surface. He sees himself going into the mountains with his grandfather, who taught him how to survive in the wild. Together they hunted animals, prepared their meals, and bathed in the river. Young Akihiro watched his grandfather's skills with shining eyes, eagerly listening as the old man promised to teach him everything one day. Those warm recollections flood in, and he can only look back on those peaceful moments from his past with aching nostalgia. Akihiro slowly comes to, sprawled on the grass, every muscle throbbing, until it clicks. He's not in his room anymore. It's a weekday, and he has a meeting at work. He suddenly panics and springs upright, but when he looks around, he's surrounded by trees and raw, unbroken nature, confused, disoriented. Where on earth has he ended up? Already late for work, Akihiro first fixates on his perfect attendance record, then quickly realizes it's the least of his problems. He scans the world beyond him, only trees, stretching in every direction. Bewildered by why he's here, he searches for any sign of houses or shops. From a rocky spot, he gauges the surroundings, then decides to push forward to find out where he is. Reaching a high point, Akihiro stands and looks out over a vast wilderness that stretches so far it seems to swallow the horizon. No buildings, no roads, no signs of civilization. Nothing breaks the empty expanse. The thought lands. He's probably no longer in Japan. So he starts thinking in clean, survival terms. No nearby habitation means he has to secure food and water fast, while staying on guard, because the forest could be hiding dangerous creatures. He draws a breath and tells himself to slow down, assess everything first, then take his next step. Akihiro checks his bag. Inside, he has a lighter, a charger, and a small portable tool set. With what he's got, he decides to make simple tools. tools that could become weapons if the situation turns bad. Even though he feels utterly unprepared for survival, he forces himself to move. He makes a crude spear out of a branch, then keeps still, listening carefully to the forest around him as he weighs what might be watching him. While moving through the grass, Akihiro suddenly notices a snake nearby. It resembles a green snake he once knew, but something about it feels different. When the snake spits venom, he reacts fast, snatching a pick from his tool set and striking back. He realizes the creature is dangerous and has to be handled carefully. After barely slipping past the snake's attack, Akihiro manages to defeat it. As he examines the creature, a strange glowing presence flickers into view before him. The entity introduces itself as Sage, a guide granted to him in this world. It explains that its role is to assist him. Moments later, another message appears, informing him that the skill's stealth has been transferred from the defeated creature. Akihiro introduces himself and starts asking questions about the strange abilities he's just obtained. The guide explains that, upon entering this world, he was granted 3 main skills: Sage, Perception, and Acquisition. It also clarifies that the stealth ability he received came from the creature he defeated. Beyond those main skills, he can develop various sub-skills through experience as he continues to survive in this new world. The guide explains that stealth is a skill that lets Akihiro hide himself by obstructing visual awareness, though most skills only truly take effect once they reach higher levels through training. Realizing it will take time to master, Akihiro begins to accept the situation. Looking around the unfamiliar landscape, he finally understands he isn't just far from home. The reality hits hard. He's been transported to an entirely different world, and he's overwhelmed, so close to tears it hurts. Akihiro asks Sage whether the snake he defeated is safe to eat. Taking the guide's advice, he fires off his perception skill to study it. The ability confirms the creature is edible. A wave of relief hits him as he prepares the meat, and even that, he notices, smells surprisingly good. Encouraged by the result, he realizes his new skills might be exactly what he needs to survive in this unfamiliar world. After cooking the snake, Akihiro eats it and finds the taste remarkably close to eel. Grateful for the meal, he decides to keep exploring the forest, searching for water and a safe place to rest. As he moves through the area, he spots a snare trap hidden among the leaves. The discovery makes it clear that intelligent beings are living nearby. Since he might run into them soon, he weighs whether to prepare a proper weapon first, hoping whoever set the trap is friendly. Akihiro gathers stones that are easy to shape. He crafts a simple stone axe. While he works, he also spots a nearby river, and the realization hits him. Water like that could mean a dependable source to draw from. With the axe finished, he feels a little safer and turns to his next task, a spear sharpened to a point. Just as he's about to press on, a sudden noise from the forest snaps his attention. Akihiro hears the loud cry and moves toward the spot where he saw the trap earlier. When he arrives, he finds a massive wild boar caught fast in it. As he takes in the scene, another presence registers nearby, so he's not alone in this strange place. Akihiro looks closer and realizes the figure near the trapped boar is a young girl. She grips an axe tightly, clearly ready to deal with the animal herself. From a distance, he watches, thrown off by her appearance and sheer resolve, curious, but also a little nervous about what she'll do next. The girl stands before the trapped boar, weapon in hand, poised to strike. From close by, Akihiro watches and realizes her small acts won't be enough to take down something this massive. The boar suddenly lunges for her, so he snaps his own axe through the air, throwing it fast, desperate to help before it can strike. Trapped, the boar charges again, roaring toward the girl and yanking her back in shock, just as the attack is about to land. Akihiro's axe bites into the boar. The impact halts its momentum, and the beast collapses to the ground. The girl stares, startled, until it clicks that someone intervened at the exact right moment. Akihiro surges forward, stepping into position between the girl and the boar. Gripping his weapon, he tells her to stay back as he steps forward to face the beast himself. The girl, still on the ground and startled by his sudden appearance, watches as he moves in to shield her from the danger. Facing the massive boar, Akihiro realizes there's no turning back now. Even a normal boar would be dangerous, and this monster-sized one feels far worse. Still, he's already stepped forward. He watches closely. The front leg he struck with the axe is injured. The wound makes it hard for the beast to bear its weight, and its movements slow. Sensing this narrow opening, Akihiro steadies himself, because if the boar's tusks land on him, the fight will be over. Akihiro takes advantage of the boar's injured leg and surges forward as the beast stumbles. Catching the opening, he drives his spear down with every ounce of strength, striking the animal dead on. The blow hits hard, solid, final, and the boar collapses, exhausted, yet truly relieved. Akihiro registers that he's brought down the massive creature. After that decisive strike, the boar finally gives in and falls. Breathing hard, Akihiro staggers back, relieved he's made it through the fight. With the creature lying motionless, another system message appears before him, telling him the boar's skill and bravery have been transferred to him. After the fight, Akihiro catches his breath, the realization landing hard. He came within a heartbeat of dying. He understands that if he hadn't prepared a weapon earlier, he wouldn't have made it through. Determined to keep living in this new world, he decides he has to sharpen his fighting skills. Only then does he remember the girl he helped. He turns toward her, checks for any injuries, and hopes, somehow, that she'll understand him as he speaks. Wanting to make it clear he's not a threat, Akihiro slowly sets his weapon on the ground and lifts his hands. Kneeling in front of her, he adopts a completely defenseless posture, a silent promise that he isn't an enemy. The girl studies him closely, thrown off by the sudden gesture. As Akihiro stays kneeling with his hands raised, a message flashes, signaling that his language recognition is being synchronized. To his shock, the instant after, he can suddenly understand the girl. She confirms she's not hurt and thanks him for saving her. Hearing she's safe, Akihiro exhales with relief, reassured as the two finally manage to communicate. When the girl sees Akihiro kneeling with his hands raised and his weapon dropped, her face flushes, and she immediately turns flustered, because in her culture, that kind of gesture is the highest form of respect and is often associated with a marriage proposal. Thinking he's just proposed to her, she shyly says she accepts, leaving Akihiro utterly confused about how the moment spiraled into such a misunderstanding. The girl explains that, in her culture, kneeling with both hands raised and dropping every weapon represents the highest form of respect between a man and a woman, symbolizing a marriage proposal. Misunderstanding Akihiro's gesture, she shyly accepts what she believes is his proposal. Akihiro is left completely stunned, realizing that his attempt to show peace has somehow been turned into an unexpected engagement in this unfamiliar world. Still kneeling, Akihiro realizes his gesture has unintentionally been taken as a marriage proposal. The girl gently asks him to take care of her, affectionately calling him her darling. Confused and overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, Akihiro can only wonder what he's supposed to do next. Unaware of the customs of this world, 3 to 5-year-old Akihiro Maekawa accidentally ends up proposing after saving the girl. When he finally realizes the misunderstanding, a chilling thought hits him. His fate may already be sealed. The girl, meanwhile, beams with joy and welcomes him, inviting him to her village. With no better option, Akihiro decides to go along for now, thinking it might be best to clear up the misunderstanding later, as long as they're headed toward a place where other people live. The girl cheerfully introduces herself as Lizitia, a 5-year-old apprentice hunter. The moment Akihiro hears her age, he's instantly shocked, realizing he'd somehow proposed to someone 20 years younger than him, and worse, someone still a minor, so panic hits, raw and horrified. Lizitia explains that in her world, anyone who's 15 is already considered an adult and can live independently, even marry. Hearing that, Akihiro's relief comes fast. The situation isn't nearly as complicated as he first feared. Embarrassment follows right on its heels. He quickly apologizes and awkwardly introduces himself, saying his name is Akihiro Maekawa. When Akihiro explains that Maekawa is his surname and that Akihiro is his given name, Lizitia freezes in surprise. In this world, surnames are usually reserved for nobles. Catching on fast, Akihiro clears his throat and quickly reassures her that, where he's from, it's completely normal. Then he asks her to simply call him Akihiro. Lizitia happily agrees at once, addressing him respectfully as Akihiro-sama, leaving him just a little flustered. When Akihiro asks her to drop the honorifics and call him by name, Lizitia goes red with embarrassment. In her culture, Doing that signals a very close relationship. It's something she feels shy about accepting immediately. Blushing, she asks for a little more time before she speaks to him that casually. Meanwhile, Akihiro realizes that every attempt to smooth things over only backfires, turning the misunderstanding into something even more awkward between them. Akihiro can't help wondering how they're going to move the massive boar. By his estimate, it's around 300 kilograms. Lizatia, unruffled, suggests they start by breaking down the catch first. To his surprise, she lifts the heavy animal with ease, using a rope and a tree branch, far stronger than he'd expected. Curious, Akihiro activates his recognition skill and confirms what she can do. Lizatia has high strength, plus multiple hunting skills: small game hunting, medium game hunting, bird hunting, and archery. Still curious about Lizatia's strength, Akihiro asks Sage about super strength. The explanation makes it click. In this world, magical power comes from turning magical energy in the environment into usable force, and super strength works by amplifying the muscles with that magic. Looking at it all, Akihiro can only acknowledge it. This world really is powered by swords and sorcery, and the thought hits him hard. It's nothing like the scientific world he came from. Meanwhile, Lizatia finishes draining the boar's blood and readies to cut it apart, even suggesting they cool the meat in a nearby pond before nightfall. Lizatia catches that Akihiro knows far more about processing animals than he should, and asks whether it came from his family's profession. He admits it's something he picked up by watching his grandfather, who used to hunt. Once they're done with their preparations, Lizatia says the village is about 5 kilometers away and proposes they head there. Hearing a settlement is close by, Akihiro relaxes and agrees as they set off together. As they walk toward the village, Lizatia asks if it's really okay for her to become his wife. Akihiro fumbles through an explanation. He's actually 35, and worries that, since they're strangers, she might think he looks far older. Lizatia, though, answers with casual ease. She tells him he looks like he's in his mid-20s, and insists that relationships can start between strangers just the same. So to her, age isn't the deciding factor, leaving Akihiro even more stunned by her viewpoint. Sensing his hesitation, Lizatia leans in and asks if he's upset. Her cheeks tint pink as she admits she's only comfortable with the idea because it's him, and that she wouldn't accept just anyone. With a bright smile, she suggests they simply try to stay together and let things unfold naturally. Then, as if it's nothing, she casually brings up that there are ways to reverse aging in this world, leaving Akihiro utterly stunned. Curious about her comment on reversing age, Akihiro turns to Sage for clarification. The guide explains that rejuvenation can be achieved through special medicines, magical devices, or even divine miracles. The moment Akihiro hears that, shock hits him hard, and his thoughts spiral into one burning question. Do gods really exist in this world? Lizatia casually reminds him that this is a world filled with magic, deities, and incredible things, telling him to stop overthinking it as they press on toward the village. After walking for some time, Lizatia and Akihiro finally reach their destination. From the hill, a peaceful settlement unfurls below them. Lizatia welcomes him to Teruka village. Seeing the houses spread out over such a wide settlement, Akihiro is surprised. The village is much larger than he'd expected. As evening approaches, Lizatia invites Akihiro to stay at her home for the night. Blushing, he apologizes and explains that he has no money to pay for lodging, but she cuts him off, reminding him that he saved her life. When they arrive at her house, Lizatia calls out to her father. He swings open the door to greet her, asks how the trap situation went, and then notices the unfamiliar guest standing behind her. Lizatia turns and introduces Akihiro to her father, explaining that he's the one who saved her during the incident with the boar. But she adds, just as casually, that Akihiro is also the man who proposed to her. The words hit, and in an instant, her father and Akihiro lock eyes, tension snapping tight as that unexpected claim hangs in the air. Akihiro quickly throws in an apology, clearing the confusion, and introduces himself politely. The whole scene is painfully awkward, especially after Lizatia's sudden announcement. Her father, once he's introduced himself as asked, calmly invites Akihiro inside, saying they can properly talk about what happened. As Akihiro steps in after him, He can't help but nervously wonder whether this is the moment he'll be handed serious trouble. Inside the house, Akihiro is offered a cup of herbal tea while everyone settles in to talk. He compliments the pleasantly soothing taste, and his nerves ease a little. Lizatia's mother, Tizna, warmly introduces herself. Meanwhile, Ass turns to Lizatia and asks her to explain what happened, admitting that he's still completely confused about the whole situation. Lizatia excitedly recounts everything that happened in the forest, how a massive boar was trapped, how it nearly shoved her aside, and how, just when it all seemed hopeless, Akihiro suddenly appeared and ended the monster with a powerful strike. She keeps the tension soaring as she recounts it. Once the beast falls, Akihiro throws his weapon aside. Nelt stands before her, locks eyes with unwavering resolve, and proposes. As she turns even redder retelling it, Akihiro realizes her version is far more romantic than what truly happened. After hearing Lisacha's story, her father speaks calmly, noting that everything is moving far too quickly. He adds that it isn't that he dislikes Akihiro, only that he thinks it's premature to jump straight into talk of marriage just because he saved her. Akihiro quickly agrees, feeling a wave of relief that someone else sees the situation the same way. Still, after watching him for a moment, Lizatia's father admits that Akihiro seems both respectable and capable. To make sense of it, he spins a theory. Akihiro must be some noble who fell for Lizatia, then proposed in a rush of passion, all while wrestling with the weight of family expectations about marriage. The tale is so overblown that Akihiro can't help but blush, then quickly denies it, clarifying that he is neither a noble nor a man of any high status. He goes on to explain that, in his world, he worked as an accountant for a trading company, and that his true background probably wouldn't translate well, or even make sense, to people in this world. Akihiro adds that earlier that morning he had simply been on his way to work when he was suddenly surrounded by light and transported into the enchanted forest. Ast listens intently as he scrutinizes Akihiro's clothing, taking note of how finely crafted the fabric is. Lisacha is equally stunned, saying the material is incredibly delicate, nothing like anything she's ever seen. While Akihiro admits he has no idea how fabric like that is even produced in this world, Lazadia's mother apologizes for examining his clothing so closely and explains that she's a weaver, which is why she was curious about the unusual fabric. Meanwhile, Ast observes the situation carefully and concludes that Akihiro's clothes must have come from a very prestigious merchant. Realizing he still looks suspicious, Akihiro decides it may be better not to explain everything for now. Since he has nowhere else to go, he politely asks if he could stay at their home for the night. Lazadia's mother agrees, explaining that her son is currently away working in another village, so his room is available. Though she calls it a humble home, she warmly invites Akihiro to remain as long as he needs. Lizatia shows Akihiro to her brother's room. As he sits down, she tells him she will bring warm water later so he can clean up, which he gratefully accepts after the exhausting and sweaty day. Lizatia tells Akihiro she'll call him when dinner is ready, and she apologizes for not being able to prepare anything fancy. He's genuinely grateful for her kindness, thanking her sincerely as she leaves the room. Alone at last, Akihiro sinks onto the bed and lets the day's strangeness wash over him. Staring at his hands, he finds the marks from earlier have vanished, and the accidental marriage proposal returns to his mind again. That night, Akihiro gazes out at the quiet sky, replaying everything that happened. He'd always dismissed tales of suddenly being transported to another world as mere fiction, yet here he is, living through exactly that kind of story. Nearby, Lizatia hums cheerfully, while Akihiro silently weighs the strange new life that has begun for him. The next morning, Lizatia sets about breakfast, while Akihiro sits at the table in borrowed clothes. She asks whether he wants to work. Wanting to support himself, Akihiro explains that he can't keep living there for nothing and needs to find a way to earn money. He asks whether there's any job he could take within the village. That morning, Ass suggests that Akihiro should register at the Adventurers Guild if he wants to start working. As they talk, Ast explains that Lizatia went hunting alone the previous day. His back had been acting up. Lizatia confirms that she's still an apprentice, continuing to learn hunting skills from her father. With that settled, Akihiro brings up the next step, joining the Adventurers Guild to secure work in this new world. Assistant explains that the Adventurers Guild handles different kinds of jobs, then tells Akihiro he should register there first. Lizaccia offers to guide him around the village afterward. As they set off, jokingly, as if that's already true, the two look like newlyweds, and Akihiro can't help but feel embarrassed, while Lizaccia cheerfully walks ahead to show him the way. Akihiro then readies himself to head for the Adventurers Guild, dressed in clothes borrowed from Lizaccia's brother. The outfit fits him well, even if the pants run a little long. Lizaccia explains that in the village, anything too fancy would only draw unnecessary attention. With heartfelt gratitude for their help, especially considering he still has no money, Akihiro steels himself to find work as soon as possible. After thanking them one last time, he strides off toward the guild, determined to start earning a living in this new world. Akihiro arrives at the Adventurers Guild branch in Toroka Village. He pauses to stare at the building and its sign, then freezes when he realizes the lettering looks strangely like Japanese. The mysterious sage ability kicks in at that instant, and suddenly he can understand the language of this world. He steps inside, and a receptionist greets him at once, welcoming him warmly, while asking whether he's come to register as an adventurer. In the guild, the receptionist walks Akihiro through how the adventurer system works. Adventurers are ranked by their contributions, rank 10 at the lowest, climbing up to rank 1 at the top. That rank determines the types of jobs they're allowed to take and how much they're paid. She adds that adventurers typically handle only one job at a time. Finishing missions builds credibility and, in turn, helps their rank rise, though the rank reflects trust, not raw strength. To complete the registration, she tells Akihiro to prick his finger with a needle, saying that only a small amount of blood is needed. Akihiro pricks his finger, letting his blood bead onto the registration card. The moment it soaks in, it magically binds the card to his soul. The receptionist explains that the card will function as his official Adventurers Guild identification. Since it's tied to his soul, the guild can sense if the owner dies, and then send a death report to the card reader. When the process is done, Akihiro's registration as an adventurer is fully finalized. Being new, Akihiro asks the guild receptionist to recommend a suitable job. She suggests a simple request. He's told to go gather a plant called Wia's grass. Following the instructions, Akihiro sets out into a nearby field. Drawing on his knowledge and careful observation, he pushes through the tall grass until he spots the correct plant and gets ready to collect it. Akihiro takes a guild request to gather 5 stalks of Wia's grass, work the Alchemist Guild has marked as urgent. The reward is higher than usual, but the receptionist cautions him. The nearby forest is thick with monster nests. The threat level may be low, she says, but he should still come prepared with proper equipment. The monsters most often found here are horned rabbits and goblins. They might look harmless in games, but Akihiro knows better. Out in the real world, even weak creatures can be deadly. To get ready, he borrows a simple tool that could double as a weapon before heading out. Using his recognition skill, Akihiro starts scanning the field for Wia's grass. Certain he won't misidentify it, he decides to gather far more than the request demands, aiming for 100 stalks, so the job will be over fast. As he gathers the grass, his thoughts slip back to the life he used to live. Only a few days earlier, he'd been hunched at his desk, working on a computer. He can't help wondering how his company is doing without him, even as he tells himself it'll keep running just fine, absence or not. While gathering waste grass, Akihiro sinks into memories of his former life, how he'd been constantly buried in work, ignoring everything else around him. Slowly, his marriage unraveled, until it finally ended in divorce 2 years earlier. Convinced it was his own fault, he buried himself even deeper in work afterward, using it to outrun the loneliness. As Akihiro gathers Wia's grass, he recalls Lizaccia's confession, and realizes her words hit him harder than he expected. Even though the proposal began as a misunderstanding, being accepted still left him reeling. He quickly shoves those thoughts aside, deciding romance and marriage are problems for later. Refocusing on the job, he keeps gathering until he finally gets 100 stalks of Wia's grass. Once the grass is collected, Akihiro lowers himself to rest. His back throbs from bending over for so long, and he decides to take a short break before heading back to the guild. As he lies resting in the tall grass, a sudden stir nearby catches his attention. He realizes something is closing in and instantly goes on guard, feeling out the presence of an animal in the area. While resting in the grass, Akihiro suddenly understands what's nearby. A goblin. It drifts through the tall grass with a crude weapon in hand, as if it's searching for something. Akihiro hides quietly, watching it, and wondering whether the goblin has noticed him. Fearing it might find him any moment, he moves first, carefully circling behind the monster, closing the gap with measured precision, ready to strike before the goblin can react. Akihiro slips in close behind the goblin and snaps the moment into motion with a surprise attack. Wielding his makeshift weapon with everything he's got, he drives the blow into the monster from the rear. The goblin stumbles under the sudden impact, but Akihiro doesn't pause. Instinct takes over. He surges forward immediately with another heavy strike, determined to end the fight before the creature has time to recover. When the goblin is finally defeated, Akihiro looks on as something uncanny unfolds. A glowing light rises from the monster and transfers part of its abilities into him, granting him the goblin's spear technique and a small measure of alertness. Remembering the guild's instructions, he recalls the proof of goblin subjugation. It's their nose. Although the job is unpleasant, he reluctantly prepares to cut it off, so he can take it back to the guild as proof. Akihiro heads back to the Adventurers Guild and turns in the Weasgrass, along with evidence that he defeated a goblin. The staff start the appraisal while he waits inside the quiet guild hall. When the evaluation is done, the receptionist tells him the reward. He's paid for the goblin and for 20 bundles of Weasgrass, bringing the total to 18,000 war. The guild staff explains that the Weasgrass will be used to make healing salves, essential because many people can't afford to get injured without them. With their supply running low, Akihiro's delivery is a real help. After getting paid, Akihiro leaves the guild with his heart light. Being thanked straight for his work gives him a fierce sense of accomplishment, something he'd rarely felt before. When Akihiro returns to the house, Lazatia happily greets him at the door. Surprised they're already home, he greets them too. Ast explains that Lazatia and he each managed to catch something that day. At the same time, Lazatia's mother is preparing dinner with the catch, even though she normally can't stand cooking. Over dinner, Ast asks Akihiro how his first day at the guild went. Akihiro says he gathered 20 bundles of Weasgrass and fought off a goblin, racking up a total of 18,000 war, earning Ast's impressed reaction. Noting that most people can only manage 2 or 3 bundles a day, Akihiro says his success comes from his recognition skill. With his income still unstable, Akihiro politely asks if he can keep staying with him until he reaches rank 9, and asks degrees without hesitation. Ast tells Akihiro he can stay for now and use his brother's room, since his brother won't be back for another month. He explains it's because his brother had been covering work after a hunter from a nearby village was injured. Relieved by the offer, Akihiro gladly accepts their hospitality. Not long after, Lazatia calls everyone to the table. Dinner is finally ready. During dinner, Akihiro digs in, praising the meal, especially the soft meatballs and the excellent seasoning. Lazatia happily accepts the compliment. Feeling pleased that he likes her cooking, she tries to ignore her mother's teasing, that Lazatia has been especially motivated since Akihiro arrived, which only makes her blush. Even so, the warm, cheerful mood stays intact as they share the meal together. During dinner, the conversation veers into strange rumors. Huge footprints reportedly turning up in the forest. Some swear they belong to a goblin. Others laugh that it could even be a Bigfoot-like creature. As Akihiro listens to the lively discussion, in the quiet tug of those thoughts, reflects on how long it's been since he last said, "I'm home," and had someone welcome him back. He still doesn't know what lies ahead in this unfamiliar world, but the warmth of the moment steadies him. For now, he decides to keep moving forward and aims to reach Adventurer rank 9, starting the next day. The next day, Akihiro starts training outside the house. With a wooden weapon, he throws his swings again and again, pushing for stronger form, stronger strength, sharper fighting ability. But the effort drains him fast. Staring at how little stamina he has left after all these years, he can't help reflecting on it. Back in college, he trained kendo with intensity, yet neglect and endless desk work have worn his body down. Seeing Akihiro collapse into exhaustion, Ast warns him, stamina is everything in real fights. Long battles turn dangerous when endurance runs out. Worried for his safety, Ast advises that, besides training, he should also pray for divine protection so he won't end up injured. Curious, Akihiro asks about it and learns that people in this world pray at the church to receive blessings from the gods. The idea sparks his interest. Lasasha catches it and asks if he's planning to go. Following offers advice, and Akihiro, deciding on the spot, sets his sights on visiting the church. After asking around in the village, he eventually stops before a towering stone building. He tilts his gaze upward and realizes this is the village church, where people come to pray to the gods for protection and blessings. Akihiro steps into the village church, and a nun greets him warmly at the entrance. He explains that it's his first time praying, then asks her to teach him the proper way to worship. The nun readily agrees, ushering him inside as she explains that the church is a place for people to give thanks to a real God. She adds that children often come here to learn reading and arithmetic, proof the church doubles as a school in the village. Within the church, the nun tells Akihiro to take his time while she waits in another room. Obeying, he kneels before the altar. He raises both hands, closes his eyes, and begins to pray. In the middle of it, he can't shake the feeling. The posture looks exactly like the stance he once used when proposing. That makes him wonder, did the gesture spring from a similar act of prayer? While praying inside the church, Akihiro suddenly hears strange messages spilling out from his sage ability. A warning flashes on screen. A critical error has occurred, and an unknown system has been disconnected. Confused by the sudden notification, he tries to make sense of what's happening. Then, at that exact moment, a mysterious voice answers with amusement, chuckling as it calls the situation interesting, over and over, clearly captivated by what it has just found. Akihiro keeps praying, but the disturbance from his sage ability twists into something else, an unexpected encounter. A mysterious figure steps into view in front of him, dressed elegantly, with a playful, theatrical presence. The man greets Akihiro warmly, welcoming him to this world and introducing himself as Shell, an entity who claims to govern pleasure. Fascinated, he can't hide his interest in Akihiro's arrival, and in the fact that he exists in this world. The mysterious man confirms the truth. He really is a god, and explains that every living being here calls beings like him gods. Akihiro is startled. So, what does it mean to be called a visitor? He asks. The god turns it around at once, requesting that Akihiro introduce himself first. With nerves tight in his chest, Akihiro Maekawa blurts out his name. The moment the god hears it, he decides to simply call him Akihiro, saying it's a fitting name for what lies ahead. Shell explains that Akihiro is considered a visitor, meaning he's the first guest to arrive in this world from outside it. There are countless worlds, he continues, each running independently, each ruled by its own gods. Akihiro is overwhelmed, struggling to hold on to the idea of multiple worlds and divine rulers. As the explanation pours on, his focus slips, until he can't quite track what Shelley is saying anymore. Seeing that Akihiro is thoroughly lost, Shell decides to lay it out, using words he can actually understand. He says the universe is something you can picture like a network, full of many independent servers. Each world runs like its own server, and the people living in those worlds are just terminals plugged into them. The gods, meanwhile, act like administrators, controlling and managing the applications running on each world. Shell goes on to explain that somehow Akihiro slipped through the closed network between worlds and managed to connect to the system the gods oversee. Amused by this oddity, she finds the phenomenon endlessly interesting. From a technical angle, Akihiro wonders whether something like that should have left behind a record, or at least a log, in the system. When he asks about it, Shell reveals something surprising. Those records look tampered with, like someone has been poking at the system. Akihiro can't help wondering whether there's an existence that oversees even the gods, like an administrator. Shell confirms it, explaining that the administrator isn't just another being. It's a higher concept above the gods, responsible for building the structures of each world. That realization hits hard. Akihiro's voice tightens as he asks the question that matters most. If such an administrator exists, then why did it connect him to this world in the first place? Shell says they've already contacted the higher system about the tampered records, but they haven't received a reply yet, joking that the support service is terrible. He clarifies Akihiro's abilities next. The Sage skill works like a voice chat support system that feeds him information, while recognition functions like a browser and screen reader. Acquisition, meanwhile, is an administrative authority that lets him obtain skills. Shell points out, These kinds of skills simply don't normally exist among the inhabitants of this world. Shell adds that the administrator's intentions are still a mystery, yet the gods nevertheless welcome Akihiro into this world. Akihiro can't help worrying. As a terminal, having abilities akin to illegal software could spell trouble. Shell reassures him. He's already aware. When Akihiro asks whether it's possible to return to his original world, Shell answers that once they manage to contact the administrator, the gods will negotiate on his behalf if he wants to go back. Until then, the gods will watch over him as a new resident of the world. But Shell warns that living without any fundamental skills would be rough, so they plan to grant Akihiro several gifts to help him survive. Shell tells Akihiro he's looking forward to their next meeting, and blesses him with good fortune as a new resident of the world. As he speaks, he reaches out and touches Akihiro's head, finishing the process of granting the promised gifts. Moments later, Shell vanishes, leaving Akihiro alone inside the church. Shortly after, the system connected to Akihiro powers back on. The Sage interface confirms the connection has been verified, normal operation has resumed, and the previous critical error is resolved. Still reeling, Akihiro is left by himself to take in everything that just happened. Too much information to hold at once, so he decides he needs to sort his thoughts. Then the system flashes several new notifications. It states that the requirements for skill acquisition have been met, and that new abilities have been integrated: prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Realizing these must be gifts granted by the gods, Akihiro begins to wonder what they actually mean. The description of prayer suggests it's a skill that lets someone petition the gods and receive divine revelations. Curious about that skill, he steps outside and tests it, asking the Sage system what the prayer skill does. Akihiro sits outside the church, still overwhelmed by what's happened. System messages follow, confirming again that several new abilities have been integrated, including prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Thinking of them as the gifts given to him, he starts trying to understand them. He learns that the prayer skill lets someone petition the gods and receive divine revelations. Unsure whether it truly works, Akihiro decides to test it. To his surprise, the connection succeeds at once, then a god answers his call, which shocks him. He'd only meant to experiment with the skill. Flushed with embarrassment, he quickly apologizes for contacting the god so casually. The god, though, takes it all in stride, relaxed and easygoing as she introduces herself as Valda, the one who governs abundance. She tells him that if Akihiro ever needs anything, he can simply call again. The brief exchange leaves him a little startled, but he soon realizes the prayer skill truly lets him communicate directly with the gods. Akihiro keeps reviewing the new abilities he's received, then asks the Sage system to explain formula control. The system says it works by converting mana particles into magical power, then transforming that power into structured formulas used to cast magic. Hearing that, Akihiro's excitement spikes, because it means he can finally use magic in this world. He immediately asks about attribute control. The system explains that the magical power created through formula control becomes a fundamental magical substance, the base element of magic. For Akihiro specifically, the wind attribute has been added, letting him use wind-based magic right now. Still, the system clarifies that attribute control skills are relatively easy to learn later. Later, after enough study and training, Akihiro could eventually gain access to other elements as well. He sits with everything he's learned, letting it settle. Even though returning to his original world isn't possible right away, the thought that it might happen someday steadies his mind. Now that he's in another world, he decides to focus on learning magic. With resolve, he sets his sights on going back home in the future. First, though, he needs to ask around about where he can study. But very quickly, he realizes that before magic comes anything else, he has to train his body, weakened after years of office work. At a meal, Akihiro asks, "Is there somewhere I can study magic?" The others tell him there's a mage who handles magical tools at the general store. They say that behind the shop, there's a magic tool store run by that mage, and that he may be willing to teach him. Hearing that, Akihiro decides to go pay the place a visit later that day. Akihiro makes his way to the general store to find the mage who could teach him magic. Lycetia insists on coming along, then presses him to do his best training with AST. When he arrives at the shop, Akihiro steps inside and asks for the mage, telling them he wants to study magic. The shopkeeper warmly welcomes him and listens closely to what he's asking for. The shopkeeper leads Akihiro to a room in the back where the mage works. Inside, the mage greets him right away and asks what he needs. Akihiro explains that he heard he might be able to learn magic here. The mage's interest sharpens, recognizing him as a promising new student. The mage watches him for a moment, then realizes Akihiro already seems to have awakened control over spell formulas. So he asks where such an ability came from. Akihiro says he never studied magic formally. His control over spell formulas awakened on its own after he received a blessing from a god who governs magic formulas. The mage is intrigued and tells him that mastering it comes down to repeated practice. Asked about his attribute, Akihiro believes it's wind. The mage introduces himself as Bastia, and Akihiro returns the courtesy with his own name. Bastia continues probing into Akihiro's magical attribute, wanting a clearer picture of what he's capable of. Bastia admits that wind magic isn't his specialty, but he still demonstrates it for Akihiro to observe. He builds the spell with care, defining the wind attribute, pressure, and shape. Bastia shapes and forms a small sphere of compressed wind above his hand, then launches it forward. Akihiro watches in amazement as the air gathers and spins into a swirling ball of wind. Bastia releases the wind spell, sending the compressed sphere forward and slamming it into the target with force. Akihiro watches in amazement. Impressed by the raw power of the technique, Bastia then explains the basics of a spell formula. First, the mage decides which attribute to use. Next, they imagine how that attribute will be applied. After that, they visualize the shape the magic will take. And finally, determine where the spell will appear before executing it. Bastia continues. Once the mage clearly imagines the attribute, its application, shape, and position without contradictions, the spell activates the moment the command is given. He adds that the final step is to imagine exactly how the magic will move, though chanting isn't strictly required. Speaking the spell plainly just helps stabilize the image in the caster's mind. After wrapping up his explanation, Bastia tells Akihiro to picture the magic striking the target, then urges him to try casting a spell himself. Akihiro can't wait to agree. Following Bastia's instructions, Akihiro carefully visualizes it all. He sets the wind attribute, defines the pressure, and imagines a small, cone-shaped form. He locks the position slightly in front of his finger and steadies the image in his mind. Once everything feels clear, he drives the magic forward at high speed and executes the spell. Akihiro releases. Then the wind projectile rockets ahead, slamming into the target with an unexpected force. Bastia is stunned by the outcome and quickly lunges to stop him. Almost immediately after casting, Akihiro sways, dizzy and nauseous. Bastia rushes over to check him, realizing it's Akihiro's very first try. The spell's power surprises him too. Wind magic is usually for pushing or striking, not for shaping such a precise, devastating attack. Bastia realizes Akihiro compressed the wind far too tightly when defining the pressure. He isn't used to handling mana yet. The excess energy rebounds, hitting him with dizziness. Akihiro asks if he can keep firing the spell repeatedly, but Bastia tells him not to, at least for now. Still, he admits the result is impressive for a first attempt. He also warns that if the spell had struck someone's head, that compressed wind could have caused serious damage. But as Akihiro improves his control over magic, the recoil and side effects will gradually fade. Akihiro asks about multi-formulas. Bastia says the techniques do exist, but they're still beyond him. He's only just learning the basics. To prove it, Bastia demonstrates an example spell. He sets the earth attribute, defines the unit mass and shape, then lines up multiple stones in a circle above his hand. At high speed, they surge forward. Then, after a brief moment, they automatically convert back into mana. Watching the spell, Akihiro can't help staring as several stones appear and move exactly as Bastia said. With the demonstration complete, Bastia runs the spell for real, launching multiple stones to hit the target, one after another. He explains that multi-formulas let a mage create several units of magic at once, controlling each one independently. In actual combat, the projectiles can even be curved to strike enemies from different angles, or from behind. Bastia adds that he specializes in earth magic, and that many warriors use this technique because it can strike multiple targets at once. Hearing this, Akihiro realizes just how intricate the technique is, and understands that mastering it will demand significant practice. Bastia tells Akihiro to keep practicing simple spell formulas, and slowly tighten his control, before moving on to more advanced techniques. When Akihiro asks about the lesson fee, Bastia asks what his job is, and learns he's only a 10th rank adventurer. Seeing that he's still a beginner, Bastia refuses to charge him for now. He tells Akihiro to come back when he's free, and once Akihiro reaches 8th rank, he'll start accepting payment for proper lessons. Grateful for the chance, Akihiro thanks him and promises he'll return. After leaving the shop, Akihiro decides to keep practicing magic. But first, he needs money. He heads out to gather Weia's grass again. Using what he learned, he works far more efficiently than before, and quickly collects a large bundle. Later, he comes back to the guild and hands over the materials, where the staff thanks him for bringing the wise grass and urges him to come again soon. After leaving the guild, I made a list of the best. Akihiro spots a few adventurers watching him, and his unease creeps in. New faces always draw attention, he thinks, so he decides to get out before trouble even has a chance to start. When he returns home, he pays the day's rent with a small pouch of money. Tizia welcomes him back as he offers the payment. Akihiro returns home and greets everyone. He pays their rent, insisting he should contribute since they've been taking care of him. They welcome him back and mention that the work ended early because the weather looked bad. Lysatia asks how his trip went and whether he managed to learn magic. Akihiro says he plans to train outside for a while. As the others talk about the rent he insisted on paying, Lysatia grows curious and asks whether she can watch his training. Lysatia and the others talk about Akihiro's determination. They agree that someone who works that hard deserves support, even if earning money in an unfamiliar land isn't easy. Seeing how sincere he is, they decide not to stop him. Outside, Akihiro starts training, swinging his weapon again and again as he practices, pushing to build his strength. Lysatia quietly watches Akihiro train. When she asks why he isn't practicing magic, he explains that using spell control triggers mana backlash, so he plans to practice it after he finishes his physical training. Although she's surprised, Akihiro reassures her that with time, he'll learn to get used to it. Lysatia still feels a little worried, but she accepts his explanation. Akihiro practices controlling his wind magic. Wanting to restrain enemies rather than kill them, he aims for the limbs and sets up a wooden log as his target. He carefully defines the spell's position, pressure, and shape before firing the wind projectile forward. The attack slams into the log, proving his accuracy has improved. Even so, some recoil still lingers, and the power feels slightly weak. Akihiro realizes he's making progress, and decides to keep refining his control after training for a while. Well, Akihiro's body finally gives out. He collapses with severe muscle soreness, exhausted from pushing himself too far. Regret stings. He should have trained more before coming to this world. As the rain starts to fall, Lysatia calls him inside. Seeing just how worn out he is, she brings him a poultice to ease his muscle fatigue. Akihiro accepts her kindness with gratitude, thanking her as he lies back and recovers from the brutal intensity of the training. While helping with the treatment, Lysatia tells him her father may not say it openly, but he's worried about him all the same. Akihiro nods, saying he's truly grateful for their kindness. Lysatia explains that her father asked her to bring the treatment and check on him. Watching Akihiro work so hard moves her deeply, and she tells him that his effort makes him a wonderful person. Akihiro admits he wants to repay the family's kindness any way he can, then jokes that saying something so serious while utterly wiped out feels a little embarrassing. As Lysatia treats his muscles, Akihiro complains about how the medicine itches, though he still thanks her. Blushing, Lysatia shyly confesses that she thinks he's really cool. So cool it surprises him. Lying there, Akihiro reflects on how he never expected to feel this kind of youthful moment again, after so many years. The next day, his body feels much better, thanks to the poultice. Determined to keep improving, he sets out again to gather more wheeze-grass, pushing deeper into the forest, and if he can, testing his spell control in real combat. While gathering wheeze-grass deeper in the forest, Akihiro spots two goblins eating something. Sensing this is his chance to test his magic in real combat, he settles into a quiet, controlled readiness. Still hidden, he targets one goblin from behind, carefully defining the wind attribute, pressure, shape, and position, then tightens the spell just in front of his finger. At high speed, he launches the attack, firing the wind strike toward the enemy's back. Akihiro's wind attack drives through the first goblin, leaving it fatally wounded. The second goblin senses something's off and starts to react. Keeping his voice steady, Akihiro readies another spell, compressing a blade of wind at his fingertip and lining up a precise shot at the creature's left knee. He releases the attack, and the magic streaks forward at high speed. At the very same instant, a new skill activates. Alertness, level 1. It's transferred to him through skill acquisition. Akihiro's wind strike smashes through the goblin's left knee, freezing its movement. Seizing the opening, he surges in and ends it with a decisive swing of his weapon. When the fight is over, he checks again for skill acquisition, but nothing comes. The system informs him that no skill transfer occurred because the defeated monster lacked compatible higher-tier abilities. With the threat gone, Akihiro exhales a little and confirms the goblin is no longer alive. After defeating the goblins, Akihiro realizes he could have finished it sooner by aiming for the head, but the guild only asked for the goblins' noses as proof. Back in town, he reflects that he's slowly getting used to using magic, and he's relieved he didn't suffer any mana backlash this time. At the guild, he turns in the materials and collects his reward for the 2 goblins, along with the Wia's grass he gathered, totaling 28,000 wares. With the result in hand, he can't help thinking about buying a new pair of shoes. After hearing rumors about a newcomer stockpiling large amounts of Wia's grass, a man finds Akihiro. Akihiro's nerves spike. Maybe this is trouble. But the man quickly puts him at ease with a reassuring tone. He explains that herb supplies are running low and prices are climbing, so adventurers truly appreciate anyone who gathers medicinal plants. As ranks rise and injuries become more frequent, those herbs can mean the difference between life and death. The adventurer praises Akihiro for his work, calling him Herb-kun, and says his collection is saving lives. Akihiro lets out a breath of relief as the man leaves, finally feeling appreciated. He thinks to himself that all he wants is a quiet, peaceful life, until someone suddenly calls out to him. A young girl stops Akihiro on the spot and bluntly asks whether he is a mage. Surprised, he can't help wondering who she is. Then another girl apologizes and speaks up. She explains that Akihiro's mana and magical flow look remarkably clean, so they thought he might be a spellcaster. The girls explain that Akihiro's monocirculation and magical flow look unusually clean, so clean that they'd assumed he must be a mage. Akihiro flashes a quick smile and denies it at once, insisting he's not a mage. Once the misunderstanding is cleared, he turns to go, but the girls urgently call after him, telling him to wait. Akihiro tries to slip away, saying he's only a 10th rank adventurer and likely won't be of any use to them. Ari stops him, then digs her heels in and demands he listen. Her companion shoots an apology for barging in so suddenly, and asks for just a moment of his time. After her friend scolds her, Ari reluctantly apologizes to Akihiro for snapping at him earlier. The girls speak up with genuine sincerity, asking Akihiro to hear them out. Seeing how desperate they are, he agrees to listen, briefly. They usher him to a meeting room where their companions are already waiting. There, a man named Deed steps forward, greets Akihiro, and thanks him for coming. In the meeting room, Akihiro introduces himself as the group starts laying out the situation. They reveal that a massive slime has appeared deep in the northern forest. Unlike normal slimes, it has grown over many years, so large now it can swallow a person whole. With a body that size, swords are useless, and Wadis's fire magic can't land with the force it needs. The group explains the request comes straight from the guild, so they can't refuse. Right now, they're the only party in the village with 7th rank or higher. They offer Akihiro 70% of the 200,000 Val reward, promising to cover extra expenses and assist with rank advancement. Wadis adds that Akihiro's wind attribute has exceptional control, making him valuable for the job. Akihiro hesitates, though, saying this task is far beyond what a 10th rank adventurer should be taking, and that it offers him little personal gain. The party says they'll leave the next morning. Because the mission is guild designated, a guild auditor will travel with them as well, bringing their number to 5. The slime is deep in the forest, but it's still within a day's trip, Deed warns that if it's left alone, the giant slime will keep absorbing things, then split apart and multiply, until it eventually destroys the local ecosystem. Hearing how far it could spread, Akihiro hesitates, knowing the village and nearby work could be hit too. But he can't stop thinking about helping. Akihiro agrees to help, even as he admits he's still a beginner and might slow the group down. The others reassure him they'll protect him, clearly relieved that he accepted. They plan to depart the next day. Akihiro can't shake the feeling that the situation has only grown more complicated, and he wonders whether he'll be any use at all. Akihiro gets home late, looking worn out. The man of the house asks him how the hunt went. Akihiro explains that after the heavy rain, the forest was hard to push through, and there simply wasn't much game to catch. Spotting the blood on Akihiro's machete, the man cracks a joke about how butchering must be exhausting. Akihiro just says he'll sharpen the blade before dinner, and with a steady calm, tells him he's fine. Over dinner, Akihiro brings up the giant slime mission. The family's surprised, because the moment they hear it, they realize just how dangerous the job really is. It's usually rated for 7th rank adventurers, even with guild support. Slimes are normally harmless, but the one lurking deep in the forest is different. Akihiro admits that monsters are still dangerous, while the girl recoils in disgust. Huge slimes are gross, despite the fact she's never even seen one. Akihiro explains that other 7th rank adventurers will be there, so he figures everything will be fine, and decides to help, thinking his abilities might come in useful. Still, unease gnaws at him. That night, lying in bed and thinking about the mission, he's met with only a single warning from the man of the house. Be very careful. Akihiro stays in bed, restless and uneasy, as the idea of going deeper into the dangerous forest to face an unknown giant slime won't leave his mind. He turns over his recent battles, and the truth lands hard. He's already killed 3 goblins humanoid creatures that carried weapons. That thought unsettles him all the more, because in this world, he knows he could just as easily have been the one who died. Alone with his thoughts, Akihiro admits he's scared. Meeting a god didn't come with an immortal body or overwhelming power. The abilities he received aren't some cheat either. Even casting a single spell leaves him feeling sick. Unsure whether the gods are truly on his side, he can't ignore how fragile his position in this world really is. Akihiro clings to memories of his old life. Ordinary days with friends, family, work, and small, simple hobbies. Compared to that peaceful world, his life now is a constant storm of danger. Lying awake, he finally faces the truth. He wants to go back. The thought of dying in this world crushes him, and he fights to hold down the wave of anxiety swelling inside his chest. Deep in his own head, Akihiro doesn't even notice Lasatsia slip into his room. She calls his name again and again until he answers. Worried, she tells him she kept trying to reach him, but he wouldn't respond, so she started to fear he wasn't feeling well. Lasatsia snatches Akihiro's hand before she even realizes it, then blurts an apology the moment she notices. Seeing he's awake immediately settles her nerves. She explains she'd been worried. After he came back home, his expression had looked darker than usual. Thinking he might be hurting, she instinctively came to check on him and apologized for barging into his room without permission. Akihiro thanks Lasatsia, admitting he'd been overthinking and sinking into a gloomy mood. Talking with her helped clear his mind. Only then does he realize that brooding alone would have kept him from sleeping. Relieved, he tells her it's nothing serious. Lasatsia smiles brightly and promises to cook him up a delicious dinner, cheering him on for tomorrow, though under her breath, she quietly admits she's worried about him. Akihiro realizes that having a place to come back to, and people who are waiting, fills him with a deep, steady comfort. With his nerves easing, he starts to look forward to tomorrow, trading jokes with Lasatsia about the meal she'll make, while she beams and tells him to be sure to anticipate it. The next morning, the man warns Akihiro that the forest's most troublesome creatures are wolves, because they hunt in packs. Still, wolves are only 8th rank prey, and with several 7th rank adventurers in the party, it shouldn't turn into a major problem. He advises Akihiro to avoid going too deep into the forest, and to stay cautious. After finishing breakfast, Akihiro steels himself and heads out. Before he leaves, Lasatsia anxiously tells Akihiro to be careful, and hands him a packed lunch. When he casually calls her Liz, she freezes, realizing it's the first time he's used that nickname. Akihiro laughs and suggests she stop calling him Akihiro-san and just call him Cheeto. Lazatia becomes flustered trying to say his nickname, but finally calls out Hiro and wishes him a safe trip. Her effort lifts Akihiro's mood, and as he steps out, he realizes that the strange surge of excitement has driven his anxiety back. Even so, Akihiro is still afraid, yet he chooses to face the mission. Encouraged, he decides to remain in this world for now and take on the giant slime. With renewed determination, he heads out, and a notification flashes. Bravery 1 has been added and integrated into his acquisition skill. Soon after, Deed greets him, ready to begin the mission. With everyone gathered, the party readies to depart. A guild member named Hardis introduces himself as the auditor who will accompany them on the mission. After brief greetings, they set off together toward their destination, the northern forest, where the giant slime is waiting. As the group pushes deeper into the northern forest, Deed warns them that the number of monsters will rise from here on out, urging everyone to stay sharp as they press on. Trekking through the trees, Akihiro asks whether the giant slime is still in the same spot. Hardis explains that once slimes grow that large, they almost never move. Akihiro steadies a map and compass to find their way, surprising the others with how he handles the navigation. Deed can't help admiring it. He's used to reading direction by the sun and the time instead. Just as the party moves forward, 2 goblins suddenly burst out to attack. Akihiro raises the alarm, but Deed responds instantly. Instantly, he draws his sword and cuts down the goblins in a single, swift strike, before they can even reach them. Akihiro is impressed by Deed's speed, recognizing the level of skill he'd expect from a 7th-rank adventurer. After quickly gathering the subjugation proof, the group pushes deeper into the forest. As they press on, Deed feels the mana density growing stronger, and the forest around them turns darker, heavier, and more ominous with every step the group takes. The group jolts to a stop. Wolves ring them in a tight, snapping circle. Hardest realizes it first. They're fully encircled. He throws out a warning to the others, panic sharpening his voice. Deed barks an order. Everyone hold the wolves back. While the others brace, Wada starts preparing a spell. The moment the wolves surge closer, the party locks into a defensive line, shielding the mage as she begins chanting. Wada snaps her chant to a close and releases her magic. Instantly, the wolves collapse, one after another, so fast it leaves Akihiro reeling, stunned by how quickly the threat vanishes. When he asks about the spell, Wada stays calm and explains she can't cast large-scale magic, so she compressed small fireballs, then fired them straight into the wolves' mouths, burning their lungs from the inside. Wadis calmly defeats the wolves without damaging their bodies, leaving the materials intact. Even with her gentle appearance, her methods are ruthlessly precise. Deed explains that wolf pelts can be sold, so they'll collect them on the way back. After regrouping, the party pushes deeper into the forest, expecting about 2 more hours before they reach their destination. Hardis reassures Akihiro, saying it's normal to be nervous when the mission is above his rank, especially since he's only recently become an adventurer. He also thanks him for agreeing to help. Even so, Akihiro worries he may not be very useful, but Hardis stays supportive. Meanwhile, Akihiro quietly notes how ordinary artists seem, so ordinary that his face is strangely hard to remember. Hardis remarks that balanced parties like theirs are rare, making this group reliable both offensively and defensively. Deed adds that the 3 of them have been childhood friends in the village. Hearing this, Akihiro is stunned, and then jokingly jealous, muttering that Deed must have had incredible luck to grow up with 2 beautiful childhood friends. Hardis quickly cuts down another monster, showcasing efficient swordsmanship that leaves Akihiro impressed. Seeing that Hardis is a guild officer, Akihiro admires him even more. With the way cleared, Hardis tells the group to push forward toward their objective, determined, without hesitation. Akihiro resolves to help however he can. After all, they've already come this far. At last, the group reaches the target and spots the enormous slime. Its sheer bulk slams into Akihiro's expectations, dwarfing what he'd imagined. Hardis confirms the spot matches the report. This gigantic slime is their objective. The party moves in on the monster, standing roughly 3 meters tall. Akihiro can't stop staring at its size. Hardis explains the slime's weak point is the core hidden inside its body. If they smash the core, or peel away enough of the surrounding slime mass, the monster's activity will grind to a halt. Akihiro tells Deed to throw a stone at the slime and watch how it reacts. The moment the stone strikes, the slime slowly crawls toward the impact point. After a beat, it drags itself back to where it started, confirming the monster responds to disturbances, but moves painfully slowly. Hardis explains they only need the slime's core, so the outer jelly is unnecessary. Still, they should avoid destroying more than they have to, since some materials can be recovered. Akihiro decides to try blowing apart the outer slime, starting with moderate power. Though he worries such a massive target might exhaust him, the others encourage him as he braces to make the attempt. Akihiro steps forward to attack the huge slime, but the sheer pressure has his hands trembling. Embarrassed by how nervous he feels, he forces himself to steady his grip. Then it hits him. Everyone protected him so he could be the one to act right now. He gathers his resolve and commits. He has to follow through. Akihiro slowly visualizes his spell. He compresses a sphere of wind to about 10 centimeters in front of his finger, adds rotational force, and shapes it into a narrow cone of pressure. After calculating the output, he fires it off at roughly 700 kilometers per hour, about half the speed of a handgun bullet. Akihiro carefully aims just slightly to the right of the slime's core, then releases the spell. The compressed wind projectile rockets forward at high speed, piercing the slime's body and detonating from within, violently blasting the jelly-like mass apart. Akihiro's attack tears the slime's outer body to pieces, scattering the jelly across the ground, but the core remains intact. Even so, the slime's outer body is still intact. The slime stops moving. Its activity has ceased. The others immediately praise Akihiro for defeating it on his first try. After confirming the slime is defeated, Akihiro lets out a brief celebration, relieved that his attack worked. However, the strain from using the spell hits him at once, causing intense nausea and a terrible headache. As he struggles, Wada supports him, thanking him for going that far for the team. Recovering from the recoil of his spell, Akihiro wonders if the severe nausea was caused by the compression and speed of the wind attack. He decides he will need to properly test and adjust it next time. Meanwhile, the others gather around the remains of the huge slime and its core. Hardis remarks that monsters of this size are rare, while Deed notes that the effort was worth it. Hardis promises to consider Akihiro for future requests, and reminds him to keep his promise to help again. After the battle, the group checks the slime's core, while asking if Akihiro is feeling better. He apologizes for worrying them, and admits the backlash from the spell was the worst he has experienced. The others, however, are impressed. They did not expect him to possess such power, and they praise him for defeating such a large monster in a single attack. While, as the group praises Akihiro, he modestly says he only learned magic recently, and understands his limits. Suddenly, an airy sense, something approaching, sharpens the air. Hardis reacts in alarm, and she warns the others that something huge is moving toward them, though she cannot yet identify what it is. The group senses a powerful presence rapidly approaching. Hardis immediately orders everyone to withdraw. Realizing they may have underestimated the danger, Deed quickly organizes the retreat. Hardis takes the lead as the others sprint, while Deed and Ari stay behind to cover the rear. Wadis secures the slime's core as they flee. As the group withdraws, a deep howl rolls through the forest, so heavy and low it can't belong to a normal wolf. Hardis realizes that at once. Eerie shouts that whatever's coming is closing in fast, urging everyone to move faster before it reaches them. Bursting through the forest, the group finally understands the truth behind them. It isn't one monster, but a large pack of wolves, more than 10, and clearly stronger than normal ones. Akihiro struggles to keep pace, panting hard as he realizes, plainly and painfully, that he's slowing everyone down, frustration tightening his chest as he feels like he's holding the party back. Knowing he can't outrun the wolves, Akihiro proposes climbing a tree and using magic to keep them at bay. He lays out the idea. If he can catch his breath between casts, he might be able to keep attacking without stopping. Deed still frets over whether it's truly safe, since they don't know how many wolves there are, but Ari leans in on confidence, believing Akihiro's magic can work. There's no time to hesitate. Hardis agrees at once, pointing out that wolves usually have limits on how large their pack can get. The group scrambles up a large tree to get away from the wolves closing in. Clutching at his breath, Akihiro grimaces about his weak stamina, then vows that when he gets back, he'll start jogging and training harder. But just as they settle into position, Eri cuts in with a warning. The wolves are already beneath them. Moments later, the wolves gather under the tree. Their shadows stretch across the ground as the pack tightens the circle around the area. The group realizes these aren't normal wolves. Each one is enormous, far more intimidating than they'd imagined, confirming the danger that's been hunting them. From the tree, they see the truth in full daylight. The wolves are about 3 times the size of a normal wolf. With a recognition skill, Akihiro realizes they've adapted to areas saturated with dense magical energy and have become monsters. Their hides are far tougher than those of ordinary wolves. From the tree, the group realizes the situation is even worse than expected. The wolves keep howling, calling more of their pack, and nearly 20 are already gathered below. Sensing the danger swelling, Hardis swings her attention to Wadis. She stays calm, lines up her magic, and starts the spell. Wadas springs down from the tree and lashes the wolves with fire magic. However, the monsters only take minor burn damage and keep on fighting. Hardis realizes the issue at once. Unlike before, she can't force the wolves to open their mouths, so she can't scorch their lungs from the inside. Without Deed and Eri holding them in place, her magic is far less effective. With the wolves unable to climb the tree, Akihiro decides to strike from above. He prepares another wind spell, compressing a small ball of air in front of his finger and shaping the pressure until it feels ready to burst. Calculating the speed so the wolves can't dodge, he sights one target and releases the attack. Akihiro's wind shot lands perfectly, tearing one of the wolves apart. Relief flashes across his face. His attack worked. But Hardis quickly spots the bigger problem. The pack is still growing. More wolves gather beneath the tree, closing in and surrounding them as their numbers keep climbing. Hardis warns that if they don't cut the wolves' numbers down quickly, even more packs may be drawn by the noise. He turns to Akihiro, asking how fast he can repeat the powerful spell he used earlier. Realizing he can't take the wolves down one by one, Akihiro understands he has to try something different. Hit many at once. So he decides, it's time to attempt a multicast spell. As Akihiro steadies himself to cast, his instructor's warning flashes in his mind. Too much spellcasting can bring serious harm or dangerous side effects. Still, there's no other path. Akihiro swallows the risk, clings to a desperate prayer, and pushes forward with the spell. Just as Akihiro is about to drive his magic farther, a voice suddenly links up with him, introducing itself as Electa, the entity that governs spellcasting. When Akihiro urgently asks about the dangers of excessive magic use, his own voice cuts in, connected to it. Electa explains the nausea he felt earlier was only the first sign. His brain is becoming intoxicated from magical strain. If he keeps overusing magic past that point, it could spiral into severe damage, up to a cerebral hemorrhage. Electa tells Akihiro that their visitor is struggling, so she will temporarily assist in controlling the spell. But she warns him that once it ends, he'll likely lose consciousness for several days. Grateful, Akihiro accepts, steels himself, and prepares to attempt the multicasting technique. Looking down, he spots nearly 30 wolves gathered below. Then the truth lands. They're facing the entire pack. Akihiro tells Hardis he'll handle it, though he warns he'll likely collapse afterward. Determined, he commits to giving everything he has. With Electa's assistance, he visualizes a targeting reticle hovering over each wolf, then starts locking on, one by one. Counting carefully, he confirms 34 wolves in total, and braces to strike them all at once. With Electa's help stabilizing the spell, Akihiro sets up a massive multicast assault, forming 34 compressed wind shots, each molded into a small cone of pressure and programmed to launch at about 150 kilometers per hour, with every projectile individually locked onto a different wolf. Thinking of the people waiting for him to return home, he steels himself, then releases the spell, issuing every attack at once. Akihiro unleashes the multicast spell, blasting dozens of compressed wind shots all simultaneously. Each projectile slams into a different wolf, detonating through their bodies at the same instant and erasing the entire pack in one. From the tree, the others watch in shock as the wolves collapse across the forest floor. None of them moves anymore. Exhausted but relieved, Akihiro realizes the threat is gone, and believes he can finally return home. After defeating the wolves, Akihiro's strength finally gives out. His consciousness starts to fade as the strain of the massive spell catches up to him. As he loses awareness, he apologizes to Hardis, while the mysterious figure who governs magic calmly watches from afar. Akihiro regains consciousness in a strange space and meets a mysterious man named Electa. The man says it's their first meeting and welcomes him as a visitor. Akihiro thanks him for helping earlier, then can't make sense of where he is. Electa explains, in a steady tone, that this place is tied to the system that governs spellcasting, while Akihiro also notices Electa's unusual clothing, formal attire from his own world, hinting that the mysterious figure knows far too much about him and his origins. Electa explains that he created this space so he could talk with Akihiro while his body remains unconscious. Since Akihiro will be in a coma for some time after the intense spellcasting, they finally have time for a conversation. Akihiro can't quite understand it. What could someone like him possibly talk about with a god? Electa says the beings who manage magic oversee different worlds, and Earth is one of the most watched. In his view, Earth draws eyes because its perspectives and ideas are simply fascinating. Electa explains that every world is built around a theme. Earth's is the growth of civilization, while this world's is letting people live as happily as possible. He adds that the planet is, in essence, a copy of Earth, including its genetics, so the inhabitants end up resembling humans. But the gods tweak the system to cut down on wars between the same species. The outcome is a world inspired by Earth, yet engineered to chase happiness instead of conflict. Electa goes on. Countless other beings who manage different worlds can't get enough of Earth, especially Japanese culture, like games, anime, and manga. He even admits he enjoys Earth stuff himself, and that he particularly likes potato chips, often copying new flavors just to try them. Akihiro realizes otaku culture is popular even beyond Earth. Electa then asks him to help introduce potato chips to this world, since the locals swear potatoes are poisonous after they got sick from the leaves. Akihiro reluctantly agrees. He'll spread them once he returns. Electa tells Akihiro it's time for him to go back, though the flow of time there is different. Before long, he'll wake up in the real world. After thanking Electa for the help in the conversation, Akihiro says goodbye. As his consciousness slips away from the strange realm, he can't help wondering what will happen when he wakes, and whether he made it back to his companions safely. The young man slowly comes to in a quiet room, blinking against the bright light spilling into his eyes. When his thoughts finally clear, he looks around and realizes he's back in his own room. He starts to wonder if everyone else is truly safe, and whether he himself really managed to come back alive. The memories of that strange experience still burn bright in his mind. As his thoughts settle, he remembers with perfect clarity meeting a mysterious being who called itself a god, confirming that everything he went through was real, not just some dream. Then he notices a young girl sleeping beside his bed. Exhausted from caring for him the whole time, he realizes she has been watching over him while he was unconscious. With a careful touch, he gently tries to wake her. Half asleep, she slowly stirs, revealing she stayed right there the entire time, nursing him back to health. He tries again to rouse her, but she stays fast asleep, then softly slides off the bed and onto the floor, her still resting peacefully. Watching how deeply she's asleep, he realizes she must be completely exhausted. After getting up, he checks his condition and finds that, aside from a few small scratches, likely from the time he was carried, his body feels surprisingly fine. The girl finally wakes and immediately notices that Hiro is conscious. Overwhelmed with relief, she rushes forward and clings to him tightly, grateful he's recovered. As her breathing steadies, she greets him warmly and realizes she was the one who'd been taking care of him while he was unconscious. Liz clings tightly to Hiro, overwhelmed with worry now that she's finally seen him awake. Her emotions spiral into panic, and her grip tightens until he struggles to breathe. Hiro quickly reassures her, and with calm focus, helps her slow down, guiding her to breathe, to relax. Gradually, Liz's breathing steadies as the tension drains away. Liz explains that the others brought Hiro back after he collapsed from excessive mana use. The Apothecary Guild confirmed it was simply overexertion, and that he'd wake once he'd had enough rest. Relieved, Hiro apologizes and expresses his gratitude for being brought back safely, and for Liz staying by his side. Liz admits just how worried she'd been during the 3 days he remained unconscious, terrified he might never wake. Hiro smiles. "I'm back." He explains that his strong desire to return to this home guided him even while he was unconscious. Liz welcomes him warmly, joy flooding her at seeing him safe again, while Hiro admits he may have pushed himself a little too hard. After waking up, Hiro is served a light soup, carefully prepared to be gentle on his stomach. Liz explains that while he was unconscious, members of the Apothecary Guild came by and provided liquid nourishment to keep him healthy. Relieved to see him recovering well, Hiro starts eating, then quietly thinks that he'll ask later just how much the treatment cost. Meanwhile, another man gets ready to head out for hunting and tells Akihiro to rest and take it easy for the day. Liz insists she wants to stay by Hiro's side. Hiro says his body feels fine and that he only plans to walk around the village, so there's no need to worry. Liz immediately tells him not to overdo it and offers to go with him when he reports to the guild. He reassures her and decides he'll simply greet the people there, then come back quickly. Even though Liz had been worried, Hiro can't shake concern about what happened after he collapsed, and he wants to hear the full details. On the way to the guild, Hiro decides to check his current skills, so a status window blooms in front of him, listing abilities like vigilance, prayer, spell control, concealment, bravery, and spear technique. Scanning the list, he spots something new, a skill tied to water attribute control. It clicks in his mind that he may have picked it up during the slime incident, though back then he was nearly collapsing, and the report might not have gone through properly. When Hiro arrives in town, one of the villagers thanks him sincerely for helping them the other day, then asks whether he's feeling better. Hiro modestly insists that he was the one who caused trouble on the way back, and the villager quickly reassures him, explaining that nothing dangerous happened at all, and that he used his vigilance skill to stay alert and run back safely. The conversation keeps flowing in a warm, friendly mood, as the others happily greet Akihiro. At the guild, Hiro is warmly greeted by the adventurers who helped him before. They thank him for his efforts and look visibly relieved to see that he is fully recovered. Hiro answers with his gratitude for carrying him back after he collapsed, knowing it must have been difficult. The others explain that everyone took turns transporting him, and Rei also quietly thanks him for helping her, even though he'd been in trouble himself. At the guild, the staff lays out the results of their last mission, explaining that the wolf-like creature they defeated was identified as a new species called a dire wolf. Because of that discovery, the guild grants an unprecedented reward. The party's total reward is 1 million wall, split evenly among the 4 members, 250,000 wall each, an amount considered substantial, close to a local farmer's yearly income. The guild staff hands Hiro a pouch of money, explaining it covers the achievement fee and the reward. Together, 390,000 wall. The party members burst into laughter, remarking that taking down the dire wolf would normally be impossible for adventurers of their rank. But this mission had been treated as a higher rank subjugation. Then the staff reveals that a special order arrived from the Viscount to reward Hiro for uncovering something valuable that could benefit the domain in the future. As a special exception, the guild also added the achievement to his completed records. The guild announces that Akihiro has been promoted to Adventurer Rank 9. The others congratulate him, saying that now he'll be able to find companions with ease. The staff explains that the usual Rank 9 exam is Goblin Subjugation, but Akihiro is exempt because he has already achieved the necessary accomplishments. From Rank 7 onward, however, adventurers are required to form parties of at least 3 members. That means he'll soon need companions, and Akihiro feels uneasy at the thought, remembering how hard it was for him to make friends in his previous life. The idea of forming an adventurer party feels like a daunting mountain to climb. The guild staff explains that parties are often built from people from the same hometown, or through introductions arranged by the guild. With Akihiro's recent achievements, many adventurers would likely want to join him. Hearing that, Akihiro feels relieved. For now, he can finally relax. Akihiro looks around and realizes Wadis isn't with them. He asks where she is, and the others explain that they'll be staying in the village for a while. While they talk, Akihiro spots the bracelet REA is wearing. Shyly, she admits it's part of her engagement. Then Akihiro compliments it. She turns red with happiness, while the others bring up that they're planning to go out together as a group for a while. REA explains that, in her country, when a couple becomes engaged, the man gives the woman a bracelet, After the wedding, the two exchange rings. Akihiro congratulates her, though he admits he isn't too familiar with the local customs. Thinking about it briefly, he quits the subject. He snaps back to what matters more, finding companions for his adventurer party. Then he apologizes for keeping them waiting and lets them carry on with their plans. Akihiro remembers what he learned about adventurer ranks. From 8th rank onward, adventurers can usually make a living, and life grows more stable at 7th rank. But the quests get harder, too. After scanning a few 8th rank requests, like culling wolf packs or hunting bears, he realizes they're not jobs he can manage comfortably alone. Rank 9 is mostly preparation, so he needs to figure out his abilities and secure companions before pushing further. Akihiro reflects that forming a party requires trust and strong relationships, something that normally takes a long time to build. In a job where lives are constantly at risk, finding companions he can truly rely on is even harder. Unlike a game where failure can be brushed off, this world is real. Drawing on his past experience as a company leader, he realizes he has to gather trustworthy people fast if he wants to survive and live here. Akihiro returns home and thanks the woman who welcomes him, offering him lunch. She hands him a pouch of money. Explaining that it covers the doctor's visit from the apothecary guild, as well as the rent, she tells him to accept it, since she had been taking care of him. After resting in his room, Akihiro decides to spend the day doing some indoor training, even though he had been told to take it easy. Meanwhile, the woman notices that his habit of pushing himself resembles Liz's behavior. Akihiro accidentally falls asleep and wakes up later, noticing Liz sleeping beside him again. Realizing he must have been carried back home without noticing, he's startled to find the situation almost identical to the morning before. When he calls her name softly, Liz slowly stirs awake, while Akihiro awkwardly wonders if he's caught in a strange déjà vu. Liz suddenly blurts out that she wants to become an adventurer too. Hiro is completely blindsided by her unexpected declaration and can only gape in shock. Liz doubles down, insisting that she wants to become an adventurer. She explains that she never wants to feel the fear of almost losing Hiro again. With determination, she asks to stay by his side, so she can protect and support him from now on. Hiro thanks Liz for her feelings, admitting that he trusts her. Still, he tells her she can't become an adventurer right now. He reminds her she's still an apprentice hunter and the precious only daughter of the homeowner, so this choice can't be made lightly. Hiro says the matter has to be properly discussed first with Wadis and Thaja. Liz firmly insists she will become an adventurer and join Hiro's party. Even though she plans to talk to her father, she declares that the final decision is hers. Hiro explains that being a hunter is already a respectable profession, and reminds her she still has plenty to learn under Wadis. He also admits he doesn't want to take her to places that are too dangerous. Liz then asks whether Hiro himself doesn't want her to become an adventurer. Hiro answers honestly. Just as she worries about him, he worries about her too. Liz insists her decision wasn't made lightly. She admits she thought it through carefully in advance. Even though she's glad he worries, she wants him to understand she has her own skills and isn't fragile. She believes she can be useful. Hearing her resolve, Hiro lets out a sigh and agrees. If she feels that strongly, then they should properly talk the matter over with Wadis and Thaja first. While talking with her father, Liz raises the idea of becoming an adventurer. She clarifies that it's her own choice and that Hiro only suggested discussing it properly with her parents. Her father listens quietly, then asks Akihiro outright if he was the one who invited her to join him. Akihiro is caught off guard by the blunt question. Liz adds that, after what happened recently, she doesn't want to just stay home and wait for Hiro to return. She insists she's thought it through seriously, then declares that she wants to go on subjugation missions together with him. Her father listens in silence, and after a beat, turns to Akihiro, asking what he thinks of the idea. Akihiro is caught off guard. His thoughts snag as he hesitates, not sure what the right answer is. Liz's father admits he's worried about sending her into dangerous places, saying he'd rather she keep working as a hunter. Akihiro explains that he was just as surprised when Liz said she wanted to become an adventurer. He understands that quests come with life and death risks, and that injuries are unavoidable. In the beginning, he tried to persuade her to reconsider, but then he realized that once Liz has made up her mind, she rarely, if ever, changes it. Hearing that, Her father nods, recognizing that Akihiro truly understands her. Akihiro then states that if Liz joins his party, she'll go in as a fellow adventurer. He stresses that trust between party members is essential. He promises that if danger ever comes, he'll protect her without fail, then asks her father to accept their decision. Hearing him out, Liz can't help it. Excitement flares across her face. At last, Liz's father gives his approval, admitting that once she's made up her mind, she won't easily turn back. Trusting Akihiro, he tells him to take care of Liz. Overflowing with joy, Liz thanks her father and vows she'll do her best as an adventurer. Her father reminds her not to forget what she learned as a hunter apprentice and to keep pushing herself forward. Liz answers with a confident agreement. Liz's father accepts the decision, pointing out that the harvest was good and giving her leave to move forward. Akihiro feels a wave of relief. He got the approval he needed. Brimming with excitement, Liz declares that she'll go to the guild the very next day to register as an adventurer. With that, Liz officially becomes a member of the party. Akihiro is happy Liz joined, but it immediately creates a new problem, deciding what role she should play. Given her strong physical ability, putting her on the front line seems like a real option. But Liz mostly uses a bow specialized for hunting small animals, which means she's ineffective against large monsters. Akihiro can't settle on where she should stand within the party. He weighs her abilities and realizes that her Herculean strength mainly amplifies her muscles with that kind of power. Maybe she's better suited for the front line than to stay in the back, though for a moment, he wonders whether her bones can even withstand that strength, but recalls that the skill's magic also reinforces the body, shielding it from the full impact of her own power. Still, while he's lost in thought about her role, Liz notices and asks whether he'd rather she fight on the front line or stay in the back line. Akihiro asks Liz if she'd be willing to take the front line with a shield and a blunt weapon. Liz agrees happily. She'll do her best if that role suits the party. When he asks whether she can use an axe, Liz says she isn't picky about weapons, and the one she carries was originally given to her for self-defense. With that settled, Akihiro decides she'll be front line. But another problem pops up fast. They still need money. Akihiro realizes getting Liz ready for the front line will be expensive. Heavy armor costs a fortune, and he hasn't even gathered proper equipment for himself yet. Blunt weapons would at least be more cost-effective than bows, but the road ahead still looks brutal. He also wonders whether Liz could even defeat a goblin yet. For now, he decides they should hunt goblins to build experience and earn money, and after that, they head to the guild to check out some weapons. Liz happily agrees, then casually mentions there's someone she wants Hiro to meet later. Liz explains that the person she has in mind is also an adventurer, likely around rank 9. Since they're hunting for party members, she thinks it's the perfect chance. She reveals that the girl is her childhood friend, same age as Liz, 15. Even though she comes from a farming family, she's been working as an adventurer since she was about 10, just to support herself. Hearing that, Hiro feels a little reassured. If she's Liz's childhood friend, then her character is probably reliable. Liz says she already spoke with her friend the day before and set the plan to meet at the guild. The girl agreed and should be waiting there. Hiro asks to be introduced, worrying he might make her wait too long. But Liz casually says there's no need to rush. As they make their way to the guild, Hiro can't help reflecting on how rural life moves at a relaxed rhythm. Nothing like the strict, clockwork timing he used to live by in his corporate days. With their steps carrying them forward, Liz starts talking about her childhood friend. She explains that, back when they were kids, the girl would punch any boy who teased her. Though Liz can be sharp-tongued, she insists that she's actually kind at heart. Then Hiro learns something that gives him a small jolt. Her friend is a girl, too. Adventuring is dangerous work, after all, and that fact sits wrong in his stomach. Finally, Liz raises her voice and calls out her friend's name, Fia. At the guild, Liz introduces Akihiro to her childhood friend. The girl greets them cheerfully at once, recognizing Liz immediately. She smiles and introduces herself as Fia, an adventurer of rank 9. She warmly greets Akihiro the moment they meet for the first time. Fia explains, casually, that she comes from a family of farmers, so her rough way of speaking might feel odd. Akihiro reassures her not to worry. Watching her energetic, blunt straightforwardness, He realizes she has a tomboyish personality. Then Fia jokes that he should relax and speak freely, teasing that he is Liz's fiancé, while Liz shoots up in instant embarrassment. Fia brings up Akihiro's recent feat. She heard he took down a whole group of high-ranked prey in one go, and even beat the so-called dire wolf by himself. Startled into admiration, she calls his strength amazing. Akihiro quickly denies taking all the credit, saying it wasn't just his power. He admits he collapsed afterward, making it clear the victory wasn't his alone. Without warning, Fia laughs and says she wouldn't mind becoming Akihiro's second wife, matter-of-factly, like it's nothing. Liz immediately erupts in rage and shouts her name, furious at the teasing remark. With the tension between the two girls hanging in the air, it's suddenly obvious this won't just be a tough road ahead for Akihiro. It may be the start of a turbulent new chapter. Fia keeps pressing her teasing, even praising Akihiro, saying that taking down a rank 6 prey on his own makes him an excellent candidate. Liz snaps back at once, furious, insisting that Hiro isn't a candidate for anything at all. The argument erupts between them, while Akihiro watches, awkwardly caught in the middle. The scene only grows more chaotic, until all he can think is how complicated everything has become. So suddenly, Akihiro shoots in with a quick interruption, explaining that in the laws of his original country, a person can only have one wife. Fia freezes in surprise, blinking as she asks, earnestly this time, if that's really true. Akihiro then clarifies that he hasn't even decided on an engagement with Liz yet, and insists he has no intention of practicing polygamy. Liz, quietly at his side, smiles. Proudly, Liz declares that she has officially registered as an adventurer, and shows her guild card, where she's listed as rank 10. Fia congratulates her, still surprised that Liz chose to become an adventurer, then asks what will happen to her work as a hunter. Liz answers that for now, her brother will handle everything, so there is no problem. Liz confirms she plans to join the party. She even mentions, as if it's nothing, that once she's married, she'll leave her family home anyway, so there won't be any trouble. Fia teases her with the same crybaby Liz she remembers, and the two of them laugh together. Happy to be reunited, they both show how excited they are to work together again. Meanwhile, Akihiro quiets, wonders whether his opinion even matters in all of this. Akihiro decides to stop by a weapon shop, and both Liz and Fia agree to tag along. When he asks what they're planning to do next, they admit they've got nothing else lined up, so the three head there together. In the shop, Akihiro asks Liz which blunt weapon she prefers. After a quick look around, Liz swiftly picks out a large hammer and says it just looks cool. Akihiro pauses to think as he studies the choice. While he continues browsing, he decides he should get a proper machete for himself too. After testing a few blades, he makes his selection and asks the shopkeeper to prepare the purchase. Meanwhile, Liz grips the large hammer and imagines her full set of equipment, while Fia beams and praises her, insisting she really looks like an adventurer and that the weapon fits her perfectly. Akihiro decides to cover the items, but Liz insists on paying for her own equipment. Fia excitedly suggests buying something for herself as well, but Liz cuts in to stop her. Akihiro then decides to pay for Liz's equipment, telling her it's a small thank you gift. Even with hesitation at first, she finally accepts, then thanks him sincerely. Despite the hefty cost, Akihiro feels reassured, since the recent reward put more money in his pocket. He decides the purchase is a necessary expense. Fia asks Akihiro whether she can see his magic in action. Instead of showing off in the middle of town, they head for a quiet spot at the edge of the village. She leads them into a small clearing in the woods, where she usually practices. Since no one ever comes there, it's perfect for training without restraint. Fia asks if she can try shooting at the wooden target, and Akihiro lets her. Liz comments that this is exactly where Fia normally practices. Akihiro starts demonstrating his magic. He concentrates on the wind attribute, shaping the air into a small, rotating form hovering just in front of his finger. He keeps a careful grip on its size and position, then steadies the spell. Only after it holds stable does he add rotational force and fire it forward at high speed. The compressed wind streaks ahead like a projectile, slamming into the target with a sharp, clean impact. He then speaks evenly, calmly explaining that this is basically how his magic works. Fia watches Akihiro's demonstration and asks if he's a complete beginner. Liz looks taken aback by the bluntness of the question. Akihiro calmly admits he's a novice and asks why she thinks so. Fia says the incantation he used is taught from the very start of basic magic classes, designed to help beginners grasp spell structure and feel the feedback that comes from putting out too much magic. Fia adds that the spell Akihiro used is usually covered very early in magic education. She explains that once students move into the intermediate course, they start using something called a simulator to practice safely. Akihiro remembers a mage he once worked with, briefly bringing up the same idea. Even though he never truly learned it, the concept clicks into place now. Fia goes on to lay out how it works. A mage runs a simulation inside their own mind before casting. If the imagined outcome looks stable and correct, they move on to execution. The caster has to strongly visualize the result and confirm the spell's structure will function properly. Listening closely, Akihiro summarizes it in his own words, like launching an application inside his mind to test the spell first. Then, deciding to try it immediately, he readies himself to run the mental simulator before casting again. Akihiro steadies his focus and tries to imagine the chant he used earlier. As he concentrates, images suddenly bloom in his mind. He's looking down at himself, as if from above, and the spell forms right in front of him. Realizing what's happening, Akihiro understands that the simulator is activating inside his mind, projecting the spell's process like a game interface. Akihiro keeps watching the simulator inside his mind. At first, the experience hits him like a wave. Nausea flickers at the edges, as if he's staring at brutally vivid, three-dimensional imagery. Still, he quickly realizes something crucial. In the simulation, he can move freely. The projected image of himself answers every motion. When he walks, it walks. When he closes in on the magical target, or drifts away, the viewpoint slides with him. Gradually, Akihiro realizes the simulator doesn't just approximate it. It mirrors his movements perfectly, letting him study the spell's position and behavior before he ever casts it for real. Akihiro focuses on the simulator and commits to executing the spell. In his mind, a confirmation interface blooms, an OK sign, and an enter command. He proceeds, and the spell activates exactly the way it did in the simulation, proving the system works. Motivated by that success, he tries to test another mental image he once used when dealing with a slime. But the simulator snaps up a warning at once, saying the imagined result could be dangerous. Undeterred, he pushes forward, switching to the mental image of a direwolf. This time, the simulator rejects the attempt outright, flashing an error message. Akihiro can't help it. He looks genuinely surprised at how uncompromisingly strict the system is. Akihiro breaks out of the simulation, slightly dizzy. Liz and Fia immediately clock his condition and check on him. He tells them he's fine, only shocked, because it was the first time he'd ever felt something like that. And once he grasps how the system works, he finally understands why a mage he met before could judge the danger of his actions earlier. Looking back, he realizes others must have been grateful. He had unknowingly thrown himself straight into danger. Relief washes over him, but the after effects of the mental simulation still leave him feeling sick. Akihiro admits he's still a complete beginner, and that it will probably take time before he's comfortable using the simulator. Fia asks Akihiro where he learned magic. Liz explains that Bastia taught him from the village general's store. Fia is stunned by the answer. She adds that Bastia never even finished basic magical education. He quit school very early after realizing this. Akihiro finally understands why his magical knowledge seems so unusual. Akihiro wonders whether casting magic just by imagining it could be dangerous. Fia praises him, saying it's impressive that he grasped the concept immediately after being taught only briefly. Liz, delighted, asks if her explanation helped, and Akihiro thanks her. As Akihiro reflects on it, he realizes most people imagine spells as simple drawings, but his experiences in another world let him see them in far greater detail. That's why the way he visualizes magic feels more realistic than anyone else's. Akihiro reflects that his ability to visualize magic clearly comes from his experience with games in his previous world. Here, people picture spells in plain, two-dimensional forms, but he naturally casts them as detailed, three-dimensional images. So the spells he imagines turn out far more lifelike. and precise. He also realizes most people lack experiences like advanced games, which leaves their imagination less concrete. Even though information about dangerous magical feedback is unclear and depends on the user's ability, Akihiro can't help suspecting that using mental simulations to predict and create spells could become an extremely powerful skill. With their equipment ready, the group decides to test their strength by hunting goblins. Fia agrees enthusiastically, eager to jump into the fight, while Akihiro reminds them that Liz also needs to gain experience and level up. As they head toward the forest, Akihiro can't stop thinking about the magic he used earlier, and decides to be more careful with it for now. When they arrive, Fia takes in the area and asks if this is Akihiro's usual hunting ground. Liz casually adds that she often comes here to gather vase grass, revealing she's already familiar with the place. Akihiro spots two goblins pushing through the forest ahead. The instant he sees them, his eyes sharpen. This is the perfect chance to spring an ambush. He moves fast and barks out instructions. Liz is told to take the goblin on the right, slam it with her hammer, pouring her force straight into the body. Fia is ordered to stay alert, scanning the surroundings in case more monsters slip in. Akihiro will back up Liz the moment something goes wrong. As the goblins close the distance, he raises the signal for Liz to get ready, telling her to strike the second his command hits. Akihiro readies the attack, tracking the goblins through the simulator in his mind. The interface makes the targets clear, but the raw intensity of his visualization still makes him slightly dizzy. He pushes through it anyway, reworks the spell, then adjusts the compression rate to stabilize it. After the simulation confirms the result, the system flashes a confirmation signal. With the adjustments locked in, Akihiro casts and executes exactly as planned. No delay, no drift. The moment his attack connects, Liz rockets forward without hesitation. She takes the opening and leaps into the air, driving her hammer down with everything she has. The heavy blow lands with a sickening crash, flinging the goblin away as the impact bursts through its body. Liz lands smoothly after the strike, completing the ambush in a single decisive attack. Her hammer falls cleanly and perfectly, crushing the goblin with a precise, crushing blow. The monster collapses instantly. Its body can't withstand the impact. Akihiro watches in surprise as the fight ends in one clean strike. When the goblin finally drops, Akihiro takes note of how skilled Liz is in battle. They move in to collect the proof of the kill, cutting off the monster's nose. Watching her calmly deal with the aftermath, Akihiro realizes she shows no hesitation when defeating enemies. Having seen life and death before, she carries herself unlike ordinary people. When asked how she performed so well on her first hunt, Liz explains that she learned by observing her father's movements while he hunted. As the day drags on, Akihiro can't ignore it anymore. Liz might be far more cut out for adventuring than he first believed. Her instinctive talent in battle takes him completely by surprise. Buoyed by their momentum, the group presses on, hunting monsters. Later, they file back to the guild and tally their earnings. For taking down 20 goblins, they collect their reward, and Liz tops it off by selling the bundles of vase she gathered. After everything is added up, the total lands at 640,000 wall. Akihiro proposes splitting the achievement reward into 4 shares. Each person gets a portion, and 1 share is set aside for the party fund. Once the reward is divided, every member receives 160,000 wall. Fia is stunned. When she hunts alone, she says, she can only take down about 3 goblins in a day, so what they earned in a single day feels unreal. She also insists the plan worked because Akihiro handled everything well, and then even declares him the leader of the party. Liz objects immediately to the sudden decision. While Fia cheerfully ignores the complaint, the teasing doesn't stop her, though she does admit that being in a party feels a lot better. When she worked alone, she often found herself lonely and afraid. Brimming with energy, she bolts off excitedly and calls it a day with a cheerful goodbye, leaving Akihiro and Liz watching her go. After parting with Fia, Akihiro tells Liz he plans to stop by the church. He says he wants to pray for the party's safety and also ask God about something that's been on his mind. Liz understands and decides to head home first to help with dinner. They bid each other goodbye and split up. As Akihiro nears the church, he admits to himself that the matter weighing on him today has to do with magic. He steps into the quiet building, spots a nun reading inside, and then moves forward, kneeling at the altar. With his eyes closed, he prays with real sincerity, asking God to answer the question pressing down on him. Wondering if someone will come to respond, he waits in silence within the hushed chapel. While Akihiro prays in the church, a mysterious woman suddenly appears before him. Calmly, she tells him that a simple prayer would have been enough, no need for him to come in person. At the same time, Akihiro feels that something strange has just happened within the system connected to him. The woman introduces herself as Desha, the one who governs healing. Akihiro introduces himself in return, then explains his concern politely. He admits that the power he can use in this world feels frightening. He's worried that the knowledge he holds could reshape everything if used carelessly. Desha tells Akihiro that power itself is not dangerous. It all depends on the person who wields it. Even something as simple as a kitchen knife can turn deadly in the wrong hands. She compares his situation to being the only person in the world carrying a powerful weapon, saying his fear is understandable, but ultimately unnecessary. She trusts him to handle his power responsibly. Desha also explains that the rules governing magic are continually updated, and if his abilities ever become too influential, they'll simply revise those rules. She then mentions that she has received a message from Electoa. Desha decides to grant Akihiro a new skill and gently places her hand on his head. A warm sensation blooms through him as the blessing takes effect. Next, she demonstrates the ability by temporarily suspending his sense of pain and tells him to test it, following her instructions. Akihiro cuts into his arm, startled to find that he truly feels nothing. He slashes deeply into his arm, the pain held back as blood seeps from the wound. Desha only remarks, calmly, that it's deep enough to expose the bone. Even without pain, the sight alone terrifies him. Desha reassures him, then tells him to picture the wound healing while he uses the simulator in his mind. She explains that by visualizing the process with enough force, he can reproduce healing through his magic. Akihiro steadies himself and focuses, imagining the wound mending. In his mind, the skin slowly seals itself as the simulator processes the image. Once he's satisfied with the result, he casts the spell. The injury on his arm vanishes, leaving it completely healed, realizing it worked. Akihiro basks in his success. Then he casts the healing spell. In an instant, the wound on his arm seals over and closes cleanly, leaving him staring at it in disbelief at just how fast it recovers. Desha steps in to explain. This, she says, is what's known as divine magic. Healing outward injuries is possible in general, but mending damage inside the body is far harder because people can't picture it clearly enough. Still, Akihiro's visualizations are so exact that he barely needs any correction at all when he uses healing magic. Desha continues, divine magic doesn't depend on elaborate spell structures. If someone prays sincerely from the heart and soul, the request can be answered. No constructs, no simulations required. She adds that while a sentence structure for divine magic does exist, it's rarely needed. Before she leaves, Desha apologizes for the brevity of her visit. She was curious to hear about Earth, she admits, but she has to get back to her duties, so she goes, leaving Akihiro alone with everything she shared. After Desha disappears, the system confirms that the previous error has been resolved. Akihiro is left by himself in the quiet church, the silence pressing in around him. He realizes he can heal Liz and his companions if they ever get injured. He'll just need to stay calm and clearly imagine the wound to make it work. A notification flashes. He has newly acquired the skill Attribute Control Divine 1. 8. Recognizing its potential, Akihiro concludes that this ability is incredibly valuable. Akihiro heads back home and greets Liz's mother, reassuring her that he's fine after the day's work. She reminds him that his efforts are well known, then tells him to get some rest. Inside, Liz is finishing up the dinner preparations, saying that once her father returns, the only thing left to do will be plating the food. Before they eat, Liz suggests they practice a little longer. She wants to train her defense using the shield as well, and Akihiro agrees to keep practicing with her until dinner time. Outside, Akihiro starts training Liz. She grips her shield and hammer while he lays out the exercise. With a wooden stick in hand, he tells her he'll attack at random and instructs her to block every strike with the shield. As the practice begins, Liz lifts her shield and cleanly blocks the incoming blow. The training goes on, relentless, precise. Akihiro realizes Liz keeps catching the strikes right at the center of her shield. Her timing is exact, honed, most likely, by the years she spent hunting with a bow. Seeing her control, Akihiro explains the shield isn't just for defense. If she blocks correctly, she can shove an opponent's weapon aside or throw their stance off balance. He urges her to practice using the shield offensively, too. Normally, she'd follow a block with a hammer strike, but learning to counterattack with the shield will open far more options in battle. While Akihiro and Liz keep training, Liz's father comes home and spots them practicing late outside. Liz beams, greets him right away and says dinner is already waiting. Akihiro, still catching his breath, insists he's fine, despite the sickness he only recently recovered from. Liz teases that his exhaustion looks less like illness and more like plain stamina running low. When they finally head inside, Liz's father is startled to hear how much money Akihiro has been earning as an adventurer. Over dinner, he reminds them not to get overconfident, stressing that their success came from teamwork above all else. Akihiro admits Liz has far more adventurer talent than he ever expected, and that she could become an essential member of the group. Liz shyly explains that she only tried to copy the hunting techniques she'd seen her father use. When Akihiro praises the way she defeated the goblin, her father listens, silent, stunned. Liz beams as she promises to work harder and earn even more as an adventurer. Akihiro points out that her experience as a hunter is clearly paying off, while her father tells her to keep improving, never let her guard down. Later that night, after dinner, Akihiro tells her something that doesn't sound like encouragement at all. She won't be able to keep improving. Akihiro helps wash the dishes, even as Liz insists it's her responsibility. In the middle of their talk, he notices the pattern. Every morning, she wakes up early to fetch water from the well and carry it home as part of her daily routine. Liz frets that Akihiro might be overworking himself, but he reassures her and offers to help fetch water starting the next day. She insists he should rest, reminding him that adventuring is already exhausting work. Later that same night, Akihiro reflects that his new life still gives him more freedom than his old job. Sitting alone, he decides to organize everything he knows about magic, replaying the moment he was able to consult the goddess and obtain divine power. Akihiro experiments with magic in his room, first picturing himself soaring through the sky, but the attempt collapses at once. So he pivots to something simpler, deciding to test it with a piece of paper instead. Rather than leaning on the simulator, he drives the spell purely through imagery, visualizing wind pressure shaping the paper, fixing it in place, then concentrating hard, activating the spell, and executing the command. The piece of paper suddenly lifts a little above the table. Akihiro watches in surprise as it drifts gently through the air, before slowly settling back onto the ground. Realizing it actually worked, he surges with excitement and dashes outside, eager to push the magic even further. Outside, Akihiro closes his eyes and pictures wind streaming from the soles of his feet, imagining his body lifting as if it were light. Fired with determination, he repeats the same mental image and activates the magic. The moment he takes a step, a hidden force tugs at him, raising him just slightly off the ground. Akihiro's eyes widen. This is exactly what he imagined. The effect vanishes the instant he lets go of the image. If he controls the picture, he can move forward, backward, left, and right. He can even spin in midair. To halt, he only has to imagine the motion in reverse, guiding his movement the way he wants. Akihiro drifts through the air, and the feeling hits him. It's like skating, only weightless. The freedom thrills him as he practices adjusting speed and direction while he floats above the trees. Once he grows more comfortable, combat flashes through his mind. For him, this is entirely new and wildly exhilarating. Late at night, Liz spots Akihiro outside and calls out from the window. He halts in surprise as she comes closer, then asks if he's still practicing. Liz tells him her mother has been worried he might collapse from overworking. Without warning, Akihiro scoops Liz up in his arms and uses his magic to rise into the air. They hover above the ground. Liz starts out stunned, floating there in disbelief. As she turns her gaze outward, wonder washes over her, and the realization hits. They're really flying. Her excitement bursts through immediately. Akihiro, holding her steady as they drift, simply explains that the ability is magic. Still held in his arms, Liz can't help but grow flustered and embarrassed. She quietly admits that being this close to him makes her shy, and the moment she realizes it, Akihiro notices too. And suddenly he's awkward as well. Akihiro admits he's still clumsy with flight magic and needs more practice to control it properly. He explains that the sensation is like skating on ice, and he reflects on how easily he'd gotten carried away by pure excitement. Liz praises him for his hard work and dedication, calling him amazing. With a radiant smile, she vows to train even harder, so she won't fall behind, and asks him to keep taking care of her. Akihiro reflects that he's finally acquired the skills he needs to survive in this world. Even if his magic is still rudimentary, its range and potential are growing fast. Smiling, he encourages Liz to keep improving together. As he holds her hand, excitement surges through him. This new life feels within reach, and in this different world he can chase what he truly desires, fueling him with energy and unwavering resolve. Liz blurts out, thrilled, that Akihiro lifted her and flew while holding her the whole time. She swears the sensation was like gliding over ice, and that they even went higher than the house itself. Her bright, breathless retelling catches everyone's attention, listening. The next morning, Liz excitedly recounts what happened the previous night, telling everyone again how Akihiro carried her through the air and flew. Fia's curiosity ignites, and she admits she wants to try it too, if it's really that fun. Liz beams and agrees, saying it felt like being carried by a prince, her heart racing the entire time. When Fia asks Akihiro if it's all right, he notices she's staring at him with intense focus. Akihiro finally realizes Fia is still only a child, just 15 years old. When she insists she wants to fly too, he decides that instead of carrying her the same way as before, a ride on his back is the more appropriate option. Fia immediately protests, claiming the treatment is different. Akihiro can't shake the thought. At her age, she should still be in school in Japan. He starts to question whether it's truly right for someone so young to be out there fighting monsters. Akihiro admits that, deep down, he's been uneasy about letting two girls fight monsters at all. Liz and Fia are startled by his reaction and push back at once, insisting they're already adults, saying they're not doing this for anything else, just happy to earn money through their adventures. Hearing them out, Akihiro understands and accepts their viewpoint, realizing the two childhood friends have grown up more than he ever expected. Akihiro hauls Fia onto his back and launches into the air, soaring through the sky. Fia's eyes sparkle. She yells that it's amazing and keeps urging him to go faster, while Akihiro grumbles that her voice is right in his ear. From down below, Liz watches and can't help being surprised. After a brief flight, Akihiro lands and announces that they're done, but Fia immediately begs for more. The moment the ride ends, Fia's excitement drains fast. She complains that it's boring. Then Liz steps in, saying she's had enough fun and it's time to go back to work. Before they head off, Liz shyly turns to Akihiro and asks if next time he can give her a ride on his back too. Akihiro agrees with a smile, joking that whether it's a ride on his back or even a hug, doesn't matter. Liz practically lights up, only for Fia to quickly remind them they still have work to do. As they walk away together, Liz suddenly overflows with energy and declares that they should give it their all and earn even more today, leaving the others a little suspicious of her sudden burst of enthusiasm. After the hunt, the group looks at what they earned and realizes it's almost the same as the day before. Fia decides to swing by the general store after hearing that new accessories have arrived, while Akihiro plans to stop at the blacksmith. Liz says goodbye to both of them, her curiosity piqued by the new items, her excitement already aimed at tomorrow. Akihiro goes to the blacksmith again, greeted by the shop owner as soon as he arrives. He asks to see some spears, and then requests that another item be made for him. The blacksmith brings out several short spears, sturdy, resistant to deformation. And when Akihiro asks to test one, the owner lets him try it in the yard. Akihiro tests the spear in the yard, and the moment he grips it, he realizes it's far heavier than he expected. It's the first time he's ever handled a real spear, and he can't quite get the hang of how to wield it. Then he turns to the blacksmith and asks the price. The weapon costs $70,000, sheath included, and that's when Akihiro's eyes widen at just how expensive it still is. He tries again to wield the spear, but the weight catches him off guard once more, since it's his first time with a real spear. He fumbles, openly admitting he underestimated how heavy they are, When he asks the price again, the blacksmith repeats that it costs $70,000 and includes the sheath. Akihiro is thrown by the high cost, yet he decides to buy it, thanking the blacksmith for the deal. When asked about the other item he mentioned, Akihiro requests a scroll and something to write with. The blacksmith tells him the scroll and pen are on the table and lets him use a room in the workshop to work. In that room, Akihiro starts thinking about the village's daily life. He remembers people still pull water from wells by hand, something Liz does every morning. The realization hits him hard. How much effort that takes. And he pulls out his phone and brings up a picture of a manual pump, already hunting for a way to recreate something similar with the tools at hand. Using the screen as a reference, Akihiro studies the mechanism of the manual pump, traces the diagram with his eyes, and starts sketching the design onto the scroll, thinking that a pump would make drawing water far easier. When he's finished, he apologizes to the blacksmith for keeping him waiting, then holds up the drawing. The blacksmith leans in, studying it with real interest, trying to grasp how it works. The blacksmith studies the design and quickly understands the mechanism. Impressed, he explains that the pump relies on a valve and lever system, simple yet ingenious for lifting water. He grins and says it would be a shame to keep such an invention to himself, suggesting Akihiro present it to the Viscount. If the word spreads, even the king might hear about it. Akihiro then asks whether something like a patent exists, and the blacksmith explains that it would grant exclusive rights to sell the invention, since the Viscount governs the region, and his father is a duke. The blacksmith lays it out plainly. Producing and selling the pump would demand a real commercial enterprise. Akihiro can't shoulder it alone. He recommends a trusted merchant partner and suggests Akihiro take a cut of the profits. Then he adds, confidently, that he has connections with the master of the blacksmith's guild and assures Akihiro they'll treat him fairly. Akihiro thinks it through, recalling how Liz's mother struggles every single day just to fetch water. The blacksmith goes on, pointing out that even a forge guzzles water. So this invention wouldn't just help one person, it would be useful to many. Akihiro admits, with no hesitation, that his true goal is simply to get the pump introduced quickly, so people can start using it right away. The blacksmith catches on at once, saying the structure is simple enough to be cast. A prototype soon, he promises. With that, Akihiro trusts him and hands the project over, introducing himself in turn. The blacksmith, Ness, shakes his hand, then says he'll deliver the prototype to Ast's house, where Akihiro is staying. Bursting with excitement, Ness declares that the invention will help his mother greatly, and then, with a grin, jokes that Akihiro should consider him part of the family from now on. As he leaves the shop, Akihiro can't help thinking that once the pump spreads, it could transform everyday life for countless people. He's genuinely grateful that a prototype will be produced this fast. Still, the moment the thought settles, doubt creeps in. What if rolling out such technology brings trouble instead? Not trusting his instincts, Akihiro decides to ask the goddess directly and heads toward the church early. At the church, Akihiro asks the goddess Electoa whether spreading the manual pump throughout the world would cause problems. Electoa tells him it wouldn't. She explains that technology at a similar level would probably emerge in this world soon anyway. With his worries eased, Akihiro thanks her for answering even while she's busy. Electoa, with total casual ease, mentions she's been trying a snack called potato chips, specifically a spicy strawberry flavor, leaving Akihiro stunned because he can't even begin to imagine what that would taste like. After speaking with Electoa, Akihiro declines her offer to try the strange snack and keeps walking through the city, mulling over how, in Japan, companies sometimes come up with truly unusual combinations. Not long after, he runs into Liz and Fia on his way back. Liz is bursting with excitement. She holds up a new bracelet she bought and asks, proudly, if it's pretty. Akihiro compliments it, and her grin widens as she reveals she bought one for him as well. With a bright, proud smile, Liz shows off the matching bracelets she bought for the festival, saying they make everyone feel like a true team. Fia loves the idea, and Akihiro thanks her, promising he'll treasure it. Even with the easy, relaxed mood, Fia can't resist teasing him. "You'll never become my partner," she jokes. Laughing together, the group heads home, though they all know more challenges are waiting just ahead. The training kicks off the moment a bell rings, slicing the air to signal the start of their movement. The group surges forward at once, running in sync as they follow the instructions, locked in focus, pushing ahead together and holding their pace steady as the exercise begins. As the training carries on, fresh signals begin dictating their movements, demanding instant reactions and full alertness. They shift their direction with every sound, straining to keep up with the rhythm. Mid-run, the girl wavers, loses her balance, and drops to the ground, the impact hitting her clearly. Even so, the training refuses to stop, proving just how intense and demanding it is. The group struggles to keep their timing, slipping into visible confusion. After the fall, they regroup and help one another, trying to stay calm despite the mistakes. It becomes clear that most of them have no experience working together, so coordination is difficult from the start. Still, they accept it, understanding that real improvement will take time. They realize the training is built on simple, coordinated exercises, movements that feel almost like what they learned as kids, only far more demanding now. The repetition starts to bite, and fatigue becomes impossible to ignore. Even so, they push through for hours, slowly falling into the rhythm until it starts to feel less foreign. As time passes, their coordination sharpens, and the moment the signals come, they begin to follow them, with far smoother timing as a group. But even after they get better, they realize the training still has no true purpose, just bodies moving together without meaning. The group starts to slow down, already thinking about ending the day. At that moment, the boy steps forward, still locked in, and suggests they try a more practical drill, something that could actually help them in a real fight. He moves fast, organizing the group and splitting them into roles. Some take defensive positions, while the others act as enemies, simulating an attack. With simple branches for weapons, they kick off the drill, charging forward like monsters. The goal clicks into place. They're trying to create a more realistic situation, so they can practice reacting under pressure and working together. He explains the drill is designed to recreate that pressure, forcing everyone to face what it feels like to be attacked. Get them used to the tension so they react properly when it's real. Once they understand, the group tightens up, growing serious. Before long, a large number of participants arrives to serve as enemies, turning the exercise into a far bigger, more intense simulation. The huge group, acting as the enemies, surges forward all at once, loud voices blazing as they pile in together. Pressure spikes instantly, and the drill collapses into pure chaos. Across the line, the defenders stiffen up at once, hands tightening on their weapons as they brace for impact. Hit by that overwhelming rush, they steel themselves to respond under real pressure. The clash erupts immediately. The attackers slam in all together, filling the air with a loud, crushing din. The defenders try to answer back, but the pressure lands harder than they expected, rocking their rhythm. Even knowing it's only training, the intensity rattles them. The group begins to lose formation, the truth snapping into place as they realize just how hard it is to stay calm and coordinated when it's actually on. After the intense drill, the group acknowledges that the training was effective and far more practical. The idea of simulating real pressure proves useful, helping them understand their weaknesses. They are told to switch roles and keep practicing, building resistance and improving coordination. In the end, the session comes to a close, and everyone is urged to think over their own strategies for future battles. Training ends, and the group finally starts the trek back, able to exhale at last. He's called aside for a moment as the others begin to file out. Meanwhile, the girls, still buzzing with energy, decide to do something together to sharpen their teamwork, heading off with bright, upbeat spirits. In stark contrast, he and the others feel utterly drained after the long training, the mismatch in energy impossible to ignore. Later, fresh information comes in. A goblin group is being tracked. As they press closer to the forest entrance, the enemy gathers more numbers with every step. And to make it worse, their arrival is expected within the next couple of days, leaving almost no time to prepare. Reinforcements are already on the way, but they won't arrive until later, leaving a gap the group may have to face alone. They realize how the timing of reinforcements will hit everyone's morale, so the plan is to keep spirits up by insisting help is close. Still, if the enemy moves fast, they might have to hold their ground alone for a few hours. Even so, he keeps his focus, understanding that all they can do is give their best. The next day, they press on with coordination training. They repeat the drills, pausing to review mistakes and tighten up as a team. Practice scenarios against group formations come one after another, each attempt a little better than the last. Even so, tracking movements through the forest is proving difficult. There are so many enemies around them that it feels overwhelming. They look closer and realize the enemy count has risen compared to before, confirming the situation is only growing worse. During training, they focus on cutting the enemy numbers down, step by step, all while keeping control of the group. After pushing through the exercise, they decide to stop for the day. He reminds them to rest properly and avoid overexertion, making sure everyone is fully ready for what comes next. That night, he sits alone, staring at his weapon, his thoughts turning quietly toward what's coming. The tension tightens as he steels himself mentally. With everything decided, he accepts it. The next day will be the moment they finally face the goblin horde. He checks his abilities one last time, confirming he's as ready as he can be. Still, anxiety clings to him. Too many unknowns. He can't control everything, so he chooses to rely on his weapon and his training instead. With almost no information about the enemy and too many possible risks, he steels himself for whatever comes next. Late at night, he's cut off. She arrives to see him. Nervous, yes, but unshakably determined. "Can I come in?" she asks, insisting there's something important she needs to talk about. He lets her in, and the two settle together in a quiet, slightly tense atmosphere as she struggles to pull herself toward the words she came for. She brings up the moment they first met, recalling how he ended up proposing to her. The memory hits him off guard, leaving him genuinely surprised. She admits that even back then, she understood it wasn't serious. Yet the way she looks at it now makes it clear. Whatever he thought, that moment mattered to her far more than he realized. Over time, she admits, she began to believe the situation could become real, especially after he stayed by her side and didn't deny it in front of others. Even knowing the truth, she chose to hold on to that idea and treated it with real seriousness. Realizing what she'd done, she apologizes at once, keenly aware she might have taken advantage of his kindness. He cuts in quickly, denying her apology. "You're not to blame," he says. Instead, he admits it. He was the one who acted carelessly, and regret gnaws at him for how things turned out. He explains that when he arrived in that world, he was completely lost, and it was she who helped him. Though the proposal caught him off guard, he comes to understand her feelings were real, and that, truly, they made him happy. He admits that, because of the way he sees things from his original world, he always thought she was too young, so he never let himself look at her as someone to marry. Hearing that, she understands at once, and reveals that it was precisely why she came to talk to him that night. She wanted to face those feelings directly. She gathers her courage and confesses that her feelings won't change. After hearing it, he's left surprised, unable to react at first. Even with his explanation, she doesn't back down. Instead, she accepts the present, yet points out that the future is still uncertain, leaving a quiet possibility between them. She tells him she wants a future where they can keep doing things together. But right now, her biggest wish is that everyone survives what's coming. After saying what she needed to, she leaves with a calm goodbye. He leaves him standing there, still trying to process everything she said. After she leaves, he looks up at the night sky, letting out a small reaction as her words sink in. He realizes just how strong she is. That moment clears his head. The anxiety that's been weighing on him fades, replaced by a steady determination. Even with his heart still pounding, he steels himself, ready for what's coming. The next morning, she greets everyone with a bright smile, lifting the mood at the start of the day. They gather for breakfast together, sharing a calm moment before everything begins, as he answers, then joins them at the table. After the quiet morning, they finish getting ready and prepare to leave. The normal atmosphere thins away at last, replaced by the weight of what's coming. Before they depart, the others mention they'll move to a safer place while he and the group take on what's ahead. With a few final words of concern, they set off. Before leaving, the mood turns emotional. Tight hugs, quiet encouragement exchanged in the space between breaths. Everyone knows just how dangerous this will be. She reminds him how hard it is to protect people in a large battle, urging him to stay safe above all. Even so, she still hopes he can protect Liz if possible, trusting him as their paths split. She treats him like family, asking him to come back safely, and he accepts it with a quiet, unshaken resolve. As he leaves, he makes a firm promise to return, bringing Liz back with him, determined to come back home no matter what. As they walk toward the battlefield, he catches her smiling, as if she's almost enjoying the moment. Even with everything so serious, she doesn't seem fully shaken. When he asks, she admits she's scared. Still, being able to walk beside him like this makes her happy, showing just how much this moment means to her. He realizes that even though this isn't something to celebrate, walking forward like this feels better than simply being afraid. Watching her, he thinks she might be braver than him. As they keep going, she says how happy she is to be with him, turning the tension into something meaningful. Soon after, they cross paths with familiar faces, and the mood shifts as the reunion warms the air, before what's coming next can fully land. They regroup with the others, and quickly see the numbers are off. Fewer mages than expected, since most took a different route after training. Still, everyone gathers, and a small but stubbornly determined group forms. While they get ready, the plan is laid out. The scout unit is already steering the goblins toward the battlefield. With everything set in motion, they start moving toward the location where the fight will break out. As they head out, the group keeps mostly calm, but tension hums beneath every step. She admits she's nervous, though she fights to keep her composure. He urges everyone to do their best, as always, steadying the mood. The others answer with confidence, making it clear they're ready, even if this time the situation is more serious than usual. They reach the battlefield and fan out, dropping into their assigned positions as they wait for the enemy. Before long, a signal cuts through. The goblins are close. The leader issues sharp, unambiguous orders. Intercept them there, hold the line, and make sure they don't reach the village until reinforcements arrive. The plan is run through fast, with everyone keeping the exact roles they practiced in training, with support from the rear, defense at the front, and attack driving forward. The formation is straightforward but rigid. Once the clash starts, there's little room to shift. With the knights still some time away, they realize they'll have to hold the line on their own. Just as everything is set, the signal hits, clear and immediate, that the enemy is already in sight. The enemy finally steps into view, and the scale hits like a blow. A massive horde, far larger than expected. The sight alone is enough to shake the group. Each time they look, the numbers keep swelling. Before long, it's obvious the situation is far worse than planned, with hundreds of enemies closing in on it. The battle turns into something far more dangerous than they ever prepared for. With that overwhelming wave of enemies in sight, the group's morale plummets fast. This is worse than they expected, and it becomes clear they might not last long if things keep going like this. Realizing that, he decides to act on his own. Telling the others to stay back, he barrels forward toward the enemy. He pushes himself forward, trying to change the battle's flow, rushing ahead alone and moving straight for the enemy, catching everyone off guard. While the others stare in shock, he locks onto the nearest goblin and strikes immediately, dropping it in a single, decisive move. His sudden charge snaps the moment into motion, shattering the tension as the fight truly begins. He cuts down several goblins in front of him at speed, halting their advance and carving out a small opening. Seeing it through, he turns back, rather than pressing forward, knowing he's done enough for now. As he heads back, he calls out to the group, drawing their attention after that sudden burst of action. After returning, he confidently tells the group how many enemies he already took down, trying to lift their spirits. His attitude shifts the mood, making the situation feel more manageable, seeing that his words have steadied them. But the others regain confidence and decide to move forward together, ready to engage instead of just waiting. With their confidence restored, the group regains their rhythm and prepares to act together. The tension shifts into determination as they get back on track. They move into formation, with support units in the rear and attackers in front, as the command is given. They finally begin their coordinated attack. They rush in as one, cutting down multiple goblins in quick succession. With their coordination finally clicking, the group starts pushing the enemies back until they press forward again. They take down many enemies, yet they're ordered to fall back. Even though only a short time has passed, they've only managed to thin part of the horde. That means the fight isn't over when they pull back. The strain starts building, both in body and mind, and they realize they can't keep this pace much longer. Just as they start to wonder if they can truly endure it, another wave of enemies comes surging in, turning the situation even more desperate. They call the next wave the main force, with a leader likely buried among them. The clash ahead will come from a huge front group. Sticking to the plan, they shift to defense first, bracing, preparing to take the impact head-on without getting swallowed. The second clash erupts the moment both sides smash together at once. They keep their formation locked, then grind the enemy's momentum to a halt, stopping the advance in its tracks. With teamwork, they start cutting down the goblins again, maintaining steady lines as they drive the swarm back, little by little. They fall into a rhythm, retreating and striking in turns, holding formation while they fight. There are just too many enemies, so they don't go for the finish. They focus on weakening them, landing coordinated strikes to keep the pressure under control. The fight drags on, and no matter how many they defeat, more enemies keep spilling in. Bit by bit, the pressure starts to fracture the group. With people getting injured and dropping out, it becomes clear they're being overwhelmed, little by little. The front line keeps rotating faster as more people get injured, and the whole situation grows more unstable by the second. At the same time, some mages start to weaken from overusing their magic, exhaustion showing in every wobble as the pressure keeps stacking higher. The fight drags on, and everything only gets worse. Even when they try to create distance, the enemy snaps back in quickly, inching them backward step by step. With time passing and the pressure rising, they're ordered to endure and hold the line until reinforcements arrive, surviving on short pushes, followed by retreats. The group drives the goblins back for a moment, then darts back again just as fast, keeping the rhythm of attack and fall back. Even after all that effort, the leader realizes their work has only managed to fell about 100 enemies, while the battlefield is still crawling with more. They look ahead and see an even larger wave surging closer, and they understand the next clash won't be a sideshow. It'll be against the main force, where a commander is likely waiting. With no clear intel on the enemy, the tension tightens. The leader keeps their focus, warning that things will only get worse, and orders everyone to prioritize defense. Just hold on and survive the next fight. Right then, a new fighter comes in out of nowhere, closing the distance to the group. He recognizes the leader immediately and shows respect. He explains that he was part of the reserve forces, but he's been reassigned. Now he'll fight under their command, stepping in with them right before the next big clash. The new fighter claims he can handle close combat and offers his help wherever it's needed, though everyone knows the situation is brutal. The leader accepts him and keeps it plain. His job is only to support the front line. Against the main force, all they can do is endure. So he asks if the newcomer is ready. Without hesitation, he is. At last, the main enemy force advances, and tension spikes as everyone steels themselves for the decisive clash. Fear creeps in, but the group rallies fast, introducing themselves in a rush that somehow steals their resolve right back, all of them clinging to the hope of surviving. The leader roars, ordering full defense. While the others push their morale higher, they cling to the same thought. If they can just hold out a little longer, they might actually win. Everyone braces as the real battle ignites, fear pushed aside, resolve sharpened, and every ounce of strength committed. Even exhausted, they refuse to sag. They lift their spirits high and spur one another on to hold the line. Ready to meet the incoming wave head-on, they fight until the end. Then the main force finally surges forward. A massive wave of goblins barrels in all at once. The group stands firm, poised, and locked in. Then everything crashes together, clashing head-on as the battlefield detonates into full-blown chaos. The pressure suddenly spikes as the main force crashes into them, driving the front line back. The girls strain to keep their footing, while the leader roars at them to endure. At that moment, the new fighter lunges in, carving through the enemies to back them up. The new fighter moves fast and precise, cutting down goblins one after another with clean, controlled strikes. The leader notices his skill at once, recognizing the way he fights, like someone experienced. The others are impressed as well, because he's even stronger than expected, and they quickly feel the tide turn in their favor. The goblins suddenly push harder, tearing through parts of the line and sweeping some fighters aside. The leader's eyes narrow at once. Something has shifted. These enemies are stronger than before, as if they've been enhanced, turning the whole fight into something far more dangerous. The enhanced goblins strike with brutal force and lightning speed, driving the front line into a frantic, desperate struggle. With no time to deploy stronger magic, they're hammered down to their limit, and it becomes clear that if nothing changes, the front line is about to collapse. Just as the line is about to break, the knights finally arrive and charge straight into the battlefield. Their sudden surge sends the sweep of combat through the enemies, giving the group room to push back and steady the front. With the knights leading the charge, everyone pushes together and drives the goblins back, but right after gaining ground. Then the order to retreat hits, pulling everyone back to avoid overextending and regroup for the next move. The knights surge forward on horseback, slicing straight through the goblin ranks and scattering them in all directions. The sudden thud of steel and hooves rattles the enemy line. Their formation buckles, and the relentless pressure drives them back beneath the knights' overpowering force. As the knights keep pushing the enemy back, the group begins to believe this might be over. Exhaustion weighs down on them, and for a moment, their guard slips. But the leader stays alert. Something still feels wrong, that this fight isn't truly finished yet. He snaps the warning through the chaos. No one is to relax. They think they've won is the most dangerous moment. Looking around, he realizes how spent most of their group is, how hard it is even to keep standing and fighting. If anything happens now, they won't have the strength to respond, and that thought makes the situation feel even worse. Suddenly, a powerful presence surges in from the very heart of the enemy formation. The leader feels it and immediately knows what it is. The commander-type enemy has finally arrived, barreling straight toward them. The commander-type goblin bursts out of the center, exploding forward at high speed. It rockets ahead of the entire army and smashes down with brutal force, showing right away that it's on a completely different level from the others. The commander-type lands and releases a strange aura, its body pulsing, alive with raw energy. The group catches the red glow crawling over it. None of them have ever seen anything like it, and the realization hits hard. This enemy is far more dangerous than expected. They confirm it. The commander has arrived, standing alone ahead of the army. With a roar and a locked stare, the pressure spikes at once, as if the air itself tightens. This fight is about to get a lot harder. The leader watches the commander, weighing whether to let the knights handle it, but he knows he still has to understand what it can do. Meanwhile, the group is already exhausted, barely able to fight, making everything even worse. Sensing the danger, he urges everyone to stay sharp. Hold your defensive line while they work out their next move. The whole group remains on edge, poised to spring at a moment's notice, as the leader weighs the risk and decides to go ahead alone to check the enemy. As he closes in, something feels wrong. His focus locks onto the commander and the weapon it's bearing, and he realizes there's nothing ordinary about them. He steps closer, eyes narrowing, only to see the commander gripping a huge cavalry sword, likely scavenged from a fallen knight. With his ability, he reads the truth. The enemy is enhanced and has resistance, far more dangerous than it first appeared. And in an instant, he understands the worst part. If that weapon connects, it could end everything in a single strike. He struggles to read the enemy properly. His ability isn't working the way it should, leaving the commander even more unpredictable. Before he can react, the commander suddenly charges straight at him. He closes the distance in an instant, then unleashes a powerful attack. The commander surges forward at incredible speed, catching him completely off guard. He tries to use his ability, but it fails. He confirms the enemy's resistance to magic, so now he knows he can't lean on it anymore and has to solve this some other way. Magic won't work. He snaps back fast, using his speed to retreat and keep distance from the commander. He plots to lure it away, buying time by stalling it. But the enemy keeps coming, relentless, unbroken, never letting up or giving him a single breath. Then it hits him. The commander isn't normal at all, surging forward with explosive speed that's nearly impossible to track. At the same time, the goblins start changing direction and heading for the weaker adventurers instead of the knights, clearly marking the easiest point to break through, making the whole situation even worse. He realizes the commander is too strong to deal with alone and quickly forms a plan. Two teammates will block the attack with a shield, carving out a small opening for him to strike back using the special weapon. Even without seeing what's ahead, he commits to trusting them, slipping into position and making his move. The two girls surge forward and brace themselves, lifting their shields to absorb the oncoming hit. The impact is brutal and relentless. Still, they manage to hold it back for a moment, giving the leader just enough time to act while the pressure keeps building. Though both shields stay up, the commander surges forward faster than expected, punching through their defense. The leader snaps to attention. Something is wrong. The enemy is stronger, faster than they planned for, and every second puts everything at risk. A girl dashes in with a shield, stepping between danger and the others as the threat closes. Behind her, Her companions stall, hesitating, unsure what to do. A boy watching from the side begins to panic as he realizes she's shouldering it all alone. Still, she doesn't slow down, driving forward in a straight line toward the threat, no matter the danger. She blocks the attack with her shield and strikes back immediately. The impact whips the enemy through the air, crashing hard into the ground. A bystander stares in shock, stunned at how fast she overwhelms it. She gets hit and is thrown away, losing control mid-air before slamming onto the ground. The others freeze for a heartbeat, their faces tightening as the realization lands. She's been taken down. She lies on the ground, injured and utterly still after the blow. The boy bolts forward, panicking as he sees her condition. The monster whirls toward her fallen body and surges in, gripping its weapon as it eats up the distance. It bares its teeth and readies the strike. He dips his head, blaming himself for what's happened, while the monster keeps closing in. Then it hits him. He lost control at the crucial moment. He steadies himself, gathers his thoughts, and shoves panic aside. First, he decides to save her. Then, with a cold certainty, he resolves to end the fight no matter what. He lunges forward with his weapon, closing the gap in an instant. The monster reacts too late as he lands the blow, fully determined to take it down. He tightens his grip on the spear and drives a precise force through it. When something abnormal stirs in his mind, he shoves it aside. Only shaping the attack matters now, pushing power forward to bring the strike home. As he swings, system messages burst in waves, granting him a temporary skill and unlocking fresh data. He pauses for a breath, noticing the shift as his abilities begin to change mid-fight. He releases the attack, thrusting a brutal, power-laden strike straight ahead. The impact lands flush, blasting through the monster and overwhelming it in a single move. He immediately sprints toward her after the strike. The others keep their distance, watching. Unsure if it worked, she remained unconscious on the ground. The attack pierced straight through the creature's body, tearing open a massive hole in its chest and launching the monster backward as dust spread across the ground. The young man charged forward without stopping, sliding across the battlefield at high speed until he reached the fallen enemy. After confirming that the creature could no longer react, he pulled out his sword and stayed sharp in front of the destroyed body. With a single brutal strike, the creature's head was severed in the middle of the battle. Blood and fragments scattered through the air, while the young man kept his weapon raised, staring down the last of the remaining enemies. With the defeated commander's head in his hands, he declared victory after wiping out the leader of those creatures. Once the commander was down, the remaining creatures broke formation, swarming into retreat across the battlefield. Not long after, a message flashed, confirming the target was eliminated and that the mistake had been corrected. The moment they understood they'd won, the adventurers erupted into celebration. While everyone rejoiced at the battle's end, Akihiro finally received recognition for bringing down the enemy leader. With victory secured, the adventurers press forward, moving to surround the remaining goblins. While catching his breath, the young man received a new notification, confirming the transfer of abilities from the defeated commander. After the battle, the adventurers noticed that the girl was injured and lying on the ground, and the young man examined her wounds and concluded that her arm had been broken, with the possibility of internal damage caused by the impact. After regaining consciousness, the girl said she'd raised a shield instinctively just before the impact. The moment she was awake, her companions rushed toward her in relief, though she was still trying to make sense of what had happened around her. After confirming she was alive, the young man immediately stepped closer and pulled her into his arms. Relieved after the battle, he simply gave thanks that Liz was safe. Still, even now shaken by the situation, the young man realized that he was trembling while holding Liz in his arms. In his arms, her fear of nearly losing him, still swallowing her whole. He scolded her because putting herself in danger like that during the battle was reckless. Only after she heard that everyone had survived and that the goblin commander had been defeated did Liz finally ease. Calm down. With him holding her close, she admitted she never once believed she would die, but she still forced herself to believe. As long as she could endure, the hero would find a way to save everyone and bring them all back together. The young man thanked Liz for making their victory possible and promised that everyone would return alive the next day. Then, upon hearing those words, she finally smiled in relief as the rest of the group excitedly celebrated the end of the battle. After the battle ended, the young man was hit with the weight of exhaustion that had built up from continuously using large-scale magic. While the adventurers celebrated their victory, the knights chased down the remaining goblins that were already fleeing in disorder without their commander to lead them. Silently observing the battlefield, the young man realized they had finally won, and that everyone was still alive. Surrounded by his companions, he simply felt relieved when he heard the request for everyone to return home together. After the battle, Liz reached out to the young man and asked everyone to return home together. Later, already in front of the house, the exhausted group returned and entered quietly, so they would not wake the people who were still sleeping. Upon returning home, the group was warmly welcomed after the battle. While everyone celebrated with their safe return secured, a large meal was already waiting for them, finally washing away the heavy atmosphere left behind by the fight. After surviving the battle, everyone gathered around the table to celebrate. Between drinks, slabs of meat, and more than enough food, the group could at last truly relax, celebrating both their victory and their safe return. During the celebration, they excitedly started trading stories about the battle against the goblin commander, while they tried to spin the confrontation into a great, heroic feat. The young man insisted it had all happened by chance. Then, quickly, he reminded them that the reward would have to be split equally between the four of them. As they talked during the celebration, the group realized there were still plenty of goblins lurking, hidden all through the forest. Even so, excitement surged when they understood they'd keep getting missions and rewards, just like true adventurers. While everyone laughed and celebrated around the table, the young man only felt one thing: deep relief that they'd all managed to come back alive. Exhausted after the whole battle, he fell into a heavy, deep sleep that same night. The next day, the group learned the battle had ended, somehow, without a single death, even though everyone had suffered severe injuries. The knights also praised the young man's achievements, promising that the rewards for future missions against goblins would be increased. After the victory, he was singled out for his performance during the battle, then handed over his damaged spear to be repaired. And during their conversation, he discovered that word of that battle had already reached the nobles of the region. While walking through the city after all the chaos, the young man realized that his life was slowly beginning to change. Even while thinking about everything he still wanted to achieve in that world, at that moment, his greatest concern was finally being able to take a hot bath. As he slowly moved forward in this new world, the young man began to feel, finally, that his reality was shifting. At the same time, Liz celebrated as she realized the problems and attacks battering the region were steadily easing. Even after several days of combat, the group realized the forest was still packed with goblins scattered everywhere. With no other choice, they decided to set up camp once again. Before the mission resumed the next day. Around the campfire, during the conversation, Lot revealed that he was 25 years old and that he'd come from a family of merchants before becoming an adventurer after the battle. He also decided to officially join the group, even refusing part of the reward for defeating the goblin commander. As they talked, the group realized Lot came from a wealthy merchant family, yet he remained humble, refusing praise for the battle. The revelation quickly caught the girls' attention, causing them to see him differently. While they talked around the campfire, Fia began taking interest in Lot's life as an adventurer, and in the stories about his wealthy family. Noticing that Liz teased the girl by reminding her that it wasn't long ago, when she'd been showing interest in the hero, made the moment sting. After receiving the reward for the mission, the young man was surprised by a message sent directly by the Viscount. The invitation ordered him to appear at the noble residence as soon as he had time, leaving the entire group shocked by the sudden summons. Days later, the young man departed on a carriage journey to the Viscount's city, after receiving the unexpected summons. While staring at the enormous city looming on the horizon, he couldn't shake the question of why he'd been called so suddenly. When he finally arrived in the Viscount's city, the young man stepped down from the carriage and made his way toward the massive gates, ringed by walls and bristling towers. Faced with a place far grander than he'd ever imagined, he started to grasp the scale of the region he'd been summoned to. As he entered the city, the young man was struck by the sheer height of the enormous stone walls, and he couldn't help picturing the level of technology that must exist here. Shortly afterward, he introduced himself to the guards and confirmed that he'd been summoned directly by the Viscount. Waiting outside, the young man found his suspicions growing. This summons had to involve something serious. Soon afterward, a luxurious carriage pulled up, and one of the Viscount's attendants arrived to escort him personally to the noble residence. As the luxurious carriage carried him to the Viscount's residence, the young man's nerves kept tightening, far more than he expected from the special treatment. Not knowing the real reason for the summons, all he could do was try to guess what someone so important might want from him. When he finally arrived at the Viscount's residence, the young man was utterly astonished by the sheer size and lavishness of the enormous noble mansion. He was guided through sophisticated corridors and realized the place was far more magnificent than he had imagined. As he entered the Viscount's chamber, the young man became extremely nervous and immediately knelt before the nobles. Without even daring to look directly at them, he tried to show the utmost respect possible, until he received permission to raise his head. Standing before the Viscount, the young man finally discovered the identity of the man who governed the entire region. Still trembling with nerves, he tried to act with the utmost respect possible, but the noble himself handled the conversation in a lighter manner, letting him relax a little. During the conversation, the Viscount began treating the young man far more warmly, after realizing that the two of them were the same age. However, shortly afterward, the mood shifted, when the noble revealed that the real reason behind the summons wasn't punishment, but something entirely different. Without beating around the bush, the Viscount said he wanted to make the young man a baron, and the sudden proposal left him reeling. He could barely believe it, struggling to understand why. Someone like him had been chosen to receive a noble title. The Viscount made it clear. He meant to carve out a brand new residential region, and he wanted the young man to take charge of developing that territory. The plan was simple in outline, but huge in ambition. Scout the iron mines, build villages, and keep widening the area year after year, right down to special benefits meant to make the project possible. The Viscount explained that noble titles in that country worked less like untouchable privileges and more like administrative posts. Once the young man heard what it would mean, developing the region, boosting production, and earning the people's respect, he started to feel just how enormous the responsibility being handed to him really was. After listening to the young man's ideas on irrigation and raising production with water pumps, the Viscount came to the conclusion that he didn't think like a mere subject. He thought like a true ruler. While the country saw him only as someone battle-hardened from the war against goblins, the noble found himself believing he could reshape that region in the future. The Viscount urged the young man to think carefully about the proposal. Govern that territory, starting in the future. Even with misgivings about such a weighty responsibility, he was granted permission to take the offer with him and decide by the end of the year. After leaving the Viscount's mansion, the young man resolved to think it through seriously, the proposal to become a noble. While traveling back, he began to consider how a stable position could completely alter both his future and Liz's. While he replayed the Viscount's proposal in his mind, the young man realized that accepting it would mean a total shift in his relationship with Liz, too. If he brought her along to that territory, everyone around them would treat the two of them as a real couple, and the promise that she would remain by his side forever stayed carved into his thoughts. After days of traveling by carriage, the young man finally made it home, utterly worn out. Though everyone talked about how drained he must be from the long journey, he couldn't stop wondering whether the time had come to embrace the decision that would change his life from that moment onward. After returning from the trip, the young man simply collapsed into deep sleep, driven entirely by exhaustion. When Liz entered to call him for dinner, she startled at the sound of him murmuring her name, even as he slept. Still drifting in sleep, the young man whispered that he wanted to move forward together with Liz. When she heard that, she went quiet, caught off guard by the sincerity that slipped from him in his dreams. Hearing the young man call her name again in his sleep, Liz went utterly speechless at those unexpected words. Perched beside the bed, she tried to read the real meaning behind his wish to stay close to her. Upon waking up and seeing Liz beside the bed, the still confused young man briefly thought she had just returned home safely. Trying to make sense of it all, Liz only grew more and more embarrassed as she recalled the words he had spoken while sleeping. Still not fully understanding Liz's strange reaction, the young man went downstairs to have dinner with the rest of the family. During the quiet meal, the conversation soon circled back to the unexpected visit he had made to the Viscount. When they asked about his conversation with the Viscount, the young man decided to hide the details for the time being, and simply said that he would explain everything in the future. Though curious, the others accepted his answer and began talking about the city and the enormous castle he had visited. Before leaving, Liz asked whether he would take part in the next goblin hunt. However, the young man explained that he needed to handle matters at the guild, and then suggested that the two of them meet alone after the mission, leaving the girl completely flustered by the unexpected invitation. After arranging to meet the next day, the two parted ways with timid goodbyes, then went to sleep. Alone in her room, Liz couldn't stop replaying the unexpected invitation and started imagining what his real feelings might be. Liz spent the whole night caught between embarrassment and expectation, turning over the words she'd heard while he slept. She began to wonder if it could have been a confession, while, at the same time, desperately trying to deny that thought to herself. Left to her own thoughts all night, the young man remained torn over whether or not to accept the Viscount's proposal. He knew that if he left for that new territory, Liz would certainly choose to go with him, but he still lacked confidence that he could offer her a safe life in an unknown land. Alone with his thoughts, the young man began to be consumed by the fear of losing Liz someday, even though he wanted nothing more than to stay by her side. Part of him still believed that the feelings between two people could suddenly vanish, causing everything to end one day. Well, still trying to sort out his own feelings, the young man admitted that dealing with emotions was far more difficult than any rational problem. The next morning, his companions noticed he was still hiding the true reason behind his conversation with the Viscount. While the group tried to discover the reason for the Viscount's summons, everyone began to. He began creating theories about possible important missions for the kingdom. Even without knowing the truth, his companions imagined that the young man might end up receiving some special task connected to the country. As his companions continued spinning theories, the possibility arose that the young man could be recruited by the Order of Knights. Upon hearing that, Liz was shaken by the idea that he might end up following a path far away from the group. While listening to the theories about the Order of Knights, Liz started stitching them together with the words Hiro had spoken while asleep, like they were pieces of the same puzzle. For the first time, she realized he might truly want to stay by her side, and the thought of losing him hit her like a sudden, deep fear. While Hiro spoke with the captain of the Order of Knights, Liz stayed outside, restless, trying to bury the feelings blooming inside her. At the same time, the captain made it plain that someone with Hiro's performance in that battle would be hard to miss among the kingdom's knights. When Hiro finally met her after his conversation with the knights, Liz immediately felt the strange atmosphere clinging to him. Unable to mask her concern, she asked him straight, was he truly thinking of leaving? Seeing the worry in Liz's face, the young man admitted he'd planned to tell her the same thing that day. They sat side by side in silence, both already sensing that this talk would reshape their lives from this moment onward. In the course of their conversation, the young man finally let it out. The Viscount wanted to make him a baron and put him in charge of a new territory. Stunned by the revelation, Liz slowly began to realize that his future could flip entirely because of this decision. The young man admitted that if he accepted the Viscount's proposal, he would have to leave this house and move to the new territory. Hearing that, Liz understood, really understood, that separation could happen, and yet she still felt she had no right to ask to stay by his side. Hiro finally found his courage. Dropping to one knee in front of Liz, he decided to make a proper, formal request. He confessed that he liked her, that he didn't want to be separated from her, and that he wanted to take her with him to the new territory. As Liz listened to those words, so unexpected, she was utterly stunned. Without an immediate answer, Hiro's nervousness crept in fast, and he couldn't help thinking that maybe Liz had rejected his feelings. However, overwhelmed by emotion, she ended up crying and revealed that she had believed Hiro would leave her behind and go alone to a distant place. As he tried to understand her reaction, Hiro realized just how much Liz had been suffering, simply from imagining the two of them being separated. Hiro hugged Liz tightly and promised he would never leave her behind, saying that he wanted her to stay by his side from then on. He also apologized for hiding his feelings and leaving everything so ambiguous for so long. Crying with relief, Liz confessed that she was happy, then replied that she wanted that too, to keep walking beside him. Liz declared she wanted to continue walking beside him forever. Her happiness spilled over as she clung tightly to his body, finally free from the fear of being abandoned. In silence, Hiro only thanked her, feeling the weight of his insecurities slowly fade away in that shared moment between them. After finally confirming their feelings, Liz said, both happy and embarrassed, that they'd have to tell their parents too. Hiro stayed calm and agreed, adding that they could talk about it during dinner that night. When they arrived home, Liz stepped in with a bright, excited smile, still glowing with the happiness from the confession they'd shared only moments earlier. Hiro opened the door right behind her, but his expression immediately shifted the instant he sensed something off in the air. An unusual silence swallowed the room, and he froze for a moment, and began looking around suspiciously, with the clear feeling that something was wrong. Hiro realized he'd been brought to a white, empty space, exactly like the place where he'd appeared the moment he first arrived in that world. Still trying to make sense of what was happening, he spotted two figures materializing in the distance, and he heard an apology before they closed in on him. The two figures introduced themselves as members of the data center, apologizing for the inconvenience and stating that they wanted to speak directly with Hiro this time. They explained that the meeting had been requested by Lois, a crucial client of the organization. Thrown off, Hiro realized these people were nothing like the data center employees he'd known before coming to that world. One of the men started praising Hiro in an over-the-top way, saying he'd been deeply moved to see someone from a less developed world, someone who managed to survive, face countless dangers, continue moving forward in that world. Then he praised Hiro's courage, saying he admired the way he met that place head-on and helped the local civilization grow, even as he let himself be completely swept away by emotion during his speech. The man revealed his name was Lois and explained that he worked at the Sulo Timti broadcasting station, which monitored and evaluated everything that happened in that world. Excitedly, he added that Hiro's popularity was growing fast and insisted that he already knew quite a lot about him, leaving Hiro even more confused by the whole absurd situation. Hiro realized Lois felt exactly like the kind of person from the entertainment industry he normally wouldn't trust, yet the two of them still gave the impression they knew practically everything about his situation. It was as if they stood even above the gods of that world. Then Lois said she understood Hiro's confusion and promised to explain the entire situation briefly. The second man revealed that he held administrator privileges over that server, explaining that the world where Hiro lived was only one part of a vast system managed inside a data center. According to him, countless other similar worlds were running in the same fashion. As he took it all in, Hiro slowly began to realize that those people operated on a level far beyond even the gods of that universe. The administrators went on to say that, while watching countless different worlds, they had started to develop an interest in the idea of transferring a person from one world to another. In the end, the proposal was approved as an experiment to study the effects of that movement between worlds. After a rigorous selection, Hiro was chosen to take part, making him a truly invaluable asset to their research. Lois explained that Hiro had been chosen precisely because he was an ordinary person, someone who didn't try to change the world by force or act driven by exaggerated ambitions, but who simply wished to help the people around him. According to her, in the beginning there had been doubts about Hiro, but now the project was considered a tremendous success. Still, even as the two of them showered him with exaggerated praise, Hiro couldn't quite understand why they were treating his life like a grand spectacle. While the two of them talked about their favorite scenes from Hiro's adventures as though it were just an entertainment program, he found that the discomfort in his chest kept growing and growing. Then, Lois revealed that this visit had been made without authorization from the administrators responsible for the world, and asked Hiro to keep everything secret. When he heard that, Hiro realized that not even the gods or operators of that universe knew of their existence. Lois suggested that Hiro imagine the chaos that would happen if he told the gods about that secret conversation. Thinking about it, Hiro realized the gods would probably make a desperate effort to reach even higher administrators because of him. However, immediately afterward, he found his own thoughts strange, as if something was interfering with his mind at that very moment. Feeling an intense pain in his head, Hiro realized that something very wrong was happening to his mind. Although he still clearly remembered the conversation, it felt as if part of his memories was being forcibly blocked whenever he tried to think about certain subjects. Furious and frightened, he concluded that those two were directly manipulating his thoughts. Even shaken by the manipulation of his own memories, Hiro realized that this was no joke and gave up on the idea of telling everything to the gods. He then demanded that the two lift the restriction from his mind and quickly tell him why he had been summoned here. Lois answered that this conversation was happening outside the world's observation area, ensuring that even this memory would be kept partially hidden from the gods, before she finally began explaining the true reason for the meeting. The administrators revealed the real purpose at last. According to them, ever since Hiro arrived in the other world, The audience and popularity of the content had skyrocketed, causing everything up to that point to be treated as the first season of the story. Now the viewers wanted even greater changes. Because of that, Lois declared that the time had come to kick off the second season, and explained that the two of them had come to give Hiro 3 different choices to follow from here onward. The administrators laid out the first option: completely erase his memories of that world and send him back to Earth, where he would resume his normal life. They also promised that once he vanished, the consistency of that world would be maintained, so it wouldn't alter the story in the eyes of the viewers. The second proposal would let Hiro stay in that world, while granting him the ability to travel freely between it and Earth through a private network. The third option would expand on that idea, pulling in his future family too, and letting him live a double life, balanced between the two worlds. The administrators explained that, to keep the two worlds consistent, even the memories of Hiro's family would be altered. On hearing that, Hiro's family would be able to maintain consistency between the two worlds. Hiro immediately rejected the proposal, furious at the thought of their memories being manipulated again, and understood those choices were, in practice, a disguised form of pressure. Hiro tried to pitch a fourth option, for him and Liz to return to Earth together. But the administrators shut it down at once, insisting it would bring them no benefit. Then Lois laid bare his true view, that all living beings exist only as objects of observation and entertainment, meant to satisfy someone else's happiness. Hiro realized that Lois saw people only as disposable pieces of entertainment, someone incapable of truly caring about others. Even wanting to gain more time to think and find a way out of that situation, he ended up pressured by the administration. The administrators, who demanded an immediate answer, pressed him to decide, until Hiro realized any of the proposals could put both him and Liz in danger in the future. In the midst of his desperation and the pressure from the administrators, he finally understood what he truly wanted above everything else: to remain by Liz's side. Hiro decided that he would return to Earth because he could not trust the administrators in the slightest. Even so, the thought of separating from Liz made his heart hesitate, making it clear that this choice was far from simple for him. At the very last moment, Hiro began to doubt his own decision. Remembering Liz's words and smile, how she'd said she wanted to remain by his side forever, despair swallowed his heart. Only then did he truly feel the weight of that choice, and too late, he started to wonder if he'd just made a terrible mistake. As he heard Liz's name echoing in his mind one last time, Hiro ended up returning to Earth. When he opened his eyes, he was already back in his normal life. Wearing formal clothes, he walked through the cold at the end of the year, as if everything had come to an end. Even as he tried to push forward, and even with the thought of visiting his parents after so long lingering in his mind, an emptiness stayed in his heart, like something extremely important had been left behind. Even without being able to clearly remember the other world, Hiro started having recurring dreams of a golden-haired girl swaying in the wind. He couldn't see her face or even understand who she was, yet each time he woke up, a sharp, inexplicable pain twisted in his chest, as if he'd lost someone very important. Sometime later, Hiro decided to visit his parents' house in the countryside during the end of the year on the way. In the way, he ended up falling asleep in the car, while the children excitedly chattered about a deer they'd seen earlier. Even with family all around, and an apparently normal life, Hiro still carried an empty, distant feeling inside him. During the trip with his family to a hot spring in the mountains, Hiro was once again tormented by dreams of that mysterious blonde girl. Even without being able to remember her face, he felt a sharp unease every time he tried to think about her, as if someone extremely important was missing from his life. When Hiro saw an enormous stuffed boar, a strange sense of déjà vu hit him, like he'd faced a similar creature before. Even without being able to remember anything clearly, that vague memory left him uneasy once again. While his family believed it was only a forgotten childhood memory, even while relaxing in the hot springs with his family, Hiro remained unable to push away that strange feeling of emptiness. The confused memories and inexplicable nostalgia that surfaced inside him, especially after seeing the boar, made Hiro realize that something important seemed to be missing from his life, even without knowing exactly what it was. After the family trip, Hiro kept trying to carry on like everything was normal, but the anxiety and hollowness inside him only kept swelling. As he said goodbye to his relatives and headed back home, he even found himself weighing the idea of getting medical help, never noticing that those uncanny feelings were only the echoes of memories that had been erased. Upon returning to his empty apartment, Hiro was struck by an inexplicable loneliness. He'd lived alone for years, yet it suddenly felt wrong, sharp and painful, like the person who was meant to stand at his side had vanished from his life. Determined to drown out his thoughts, Hiro decided to cook the trout his family had given him. As he cooked and ate in silence inside the empty apartment, he went on living an ordinary life on the surface, unaware that the relentless ache of loneliness came from the lost memories of someone who had once held an important place in his heart. Even while trying to keep going like usual, Hiro ended up crying as he ate the trout he'd prepared himself. He couldn't make sense of that sharp ache in his chest. Rattled by his own emotions and anxious about his mental state, he told himself it was simple. He just needed to rest and take his mind off things with a new game. Yet the erased memories of Liz kept tugging at his heart, happening unconsciously. Even when he tried to distract himself by playing, Hiro couldn't settle. The moment he faced goblins in the game, a strange fear flared up in him, as if those creatures had stirred something buried and forgotten. Not understanding why he was so shaken by something that should have been harmless, he decided to end the night with sleep. But the emptiness and unease inside him only kept swelling. At work, Hiro personally met a foreign client named Michel during an important meeting. He'd never seen the man before, but once again, a wave of nostalgia surged up in his chest, leaving Hiro increasingly confused. The more those strange emotions surfaced, the more he felt that something important had been wiped clean from his memories. The fragmented memories kept tormenting Hiro day after day. Images of goblins, boars, and the blonde girl intruded into his mind without a trace, draining him until he could hardly think. Convinced something was wrong with his head, Hiro decided he would make an appointment at the hospital as soon as he could, while he tried to keep living his routine normally. Even exhausted and mentally shaken, Hiro pressed on with his ordinary routine. After waking up early for another day of work, he realized his life had become trapped in an empty, unchanging loop, while the erased memories and the constant feeling of loss continued to grow silently inside him. The moment Hiro arrived at work, a strange heaviness washed over him as he stared at the office door. Even though he walked through it every day, it felt like he was replaying a scene from the past, like some forgotten memory was clawing its way back to the surface. Hit by a déjà vu that only grew stronger, Hiro slowly began to understand that his mind still hadn't fully let go of the other world. The instant Hiro passed through the office door, he was back inside that empty white space between worlds. Stunned, he watched the door vanish behind him as a mysterious message blinked into view. A confirmation request had been made to grant the scholar ability. Without a shred of understanding, Hiro realized this impossible thing was starting again. Trapped in that white space, Hiro began receiving automated replies from an entity called Interface, the one responsible for sending people to the other world. When he asked for his current situation, new abilities were issued to him at once, including recognition and information acquisition. Even desperate and confused, Hiro realized that he was once again being connected to the system of that mysterious world. Even while trying to resist and asking to return to his normal life, Hiro received only a cold response from the interface, wishing him a good journey. The moment Hiro tried to resist, all of his erased memories returned at once. He finally remembered Liz, the adventures in the other world, and the feelings he had lost along with those memories. Overwhelmed by emotion, Hiro called her name while realizing that the emptiness inside his heart came precisely from her absence. Soon afterward, a new message appeared before him. She welcomed him back, making it clear he'd been brought to the other world once again. Upon returning to the other world, Hiro appeared in front of Liz's house, stunned to realize she was truly there again. He remained frozen for a few seconds until he heard her voice. The moment Liz approached him with concern, the hero finally confirmed that everything was real, then hugged her tightly. She cried, repeating her name as she apologized for leaving, still holding Liz close. The hero broke down into tears as he admitted he had run away, even after she said she wanted to remain by his side. Guilt surged in him as he chose to leave. He apologized again and again, while Liz, though she didn't fully understand what had happened, quietly comforted him and said everything would be all right. After he finally calmed down, the hero realized he'd worried everyone by showing up like that, crying. Mortified by losing control of his emotions, he tried to quickly steady himself, but soon, before Liz and her parents, it soon made clear that he still had something crucial he needed to say. Hiro decided it was time to speak seriously, about his feelings and about everything that had happened to him. While they were talking in private, Liz said that later she would demand to hear why Hiro had shown up crying like that, making it unmistakable that she wouldn't let it slide. Then, over dinner with her family, Hiro revealed that a viscount had proposed making him a baron, and that he'd also found a new town. The news instantly stunned everyone, signaling that Hiro's life in this world was about to change again. During the conversation with Liz's family, Hiro explained that he planned to accept the proposal to become a baron, only if Liz could stay by his side. Without hesitation, Liz declared that she had already made her decision, and that she would follow Hiro regardless of whether he became an adventurer or a noble. Even shaken by the idea of his daughter entering the nobility, her father eventually gave his permission, asking only that Hiro protect her as best he could. As he watched Liz and her family smiling, Hiro swore to himself that he would never abandon her again as he had done before. Yet when he remembered his sudden return to that world, the unease wouldn't leave him. He realized that there was something strange behind it all. Before returning, some kind of contract had been made with the interface. The feeling that something was still hidden within that situation began to grow inside him once again. Hiro realized that Lois had appeared before him once again. Without hiding his discomfort, he listened as the man announced that, due to pressure from the clients, Hiro had been selected for a new process called redesign. That news made it clear that his story in that world was still far from over, and that someone continued manipulating everything behind the scenes. Lois explained that, once multiple worlds had been turned into candidates for that project, almost all of the selected participants eventually panicked or refused to go on, starting right from the beginning. According to him, Hiro was one of the few who managed to keep his head and act rationally. While praising the enormous success Hiro had brought, audience numbers and sponsorships alike, Lois also recalled the failed cases of other participants who went insane or had to be urgently removed from their worlds. Even as Hiro listened to all of it, he showed total disinterest in the man's justifications. Hiro realized the fourth proposal, the one where he and Liz could return to Earth together, had finally been accepted by the administrators. Even so, Lois warned that the research institutions would still need roughly 12 years of observation before anything could be allowed to happen. Right after that, he handed over an official contract covering the new proposal. At that, Hiro began to see it clearly at last. A real chance to live alongside Liz in both worlds. The contract stated that Hiro, Liz, and their future children would be able to travel freely between the two worlds through a private network created especially for them. It would also allow them to carry physical objects and obtain knowledge from Earth so they could develop that world. Despite that, partial memory alterations would still be necessary to keep the flow of civilization going. The document also made it clear that if Hiro died in that world, he would not be able to return, while a death on Earth would be reversed as a miraculous survival. Even while nervous, Hiro realized that they had compromised considerably on the conditions. After analyzing the entire contract, Hiro realized there were no hidden clauses or obvious traps. Lois guaranteed that once the agreement was completed and they returned to Earth, all official documentation for Liz and their future children would already be prepared. Even while still distrusting Lois's suspicious personality, Hiro ultimately accepted signing the contract. The agreement established that everything would be fulfilled 15 years later, something Hiro could barely imagine. As soon as the contract was finalized, Lois celebrated by saying the audience would explode when they announced Hiro's return as the winner of the redrawing. Even while saying goodbye in an excited manner, Hiro kept the man under suspicion right up to the very end, and even as he watched Lois leave, he was still thrown off, confused by the way the name Roy resurfaced in his mind once again. After the meeting ended, Liz stepped into the room and found Hiro lost in thought. When Roy's name surfaced, she asked if it was the same person he had met in the city. Hiro tried to dismiss it. He only said that Roy was someone he knew well. Then, almost immediately, Liz pressed forward with the question that had been bothering her ever since their reunion. Why Hiro started crying the moment he came back to her. Hiro admitted he couldn't explain it properly, but that at some point he believed he had betrayed Liz, and because of that, When he saw her again, he felt like he needed to apologize at once. Liz was startled by the strange answer, but even without fully understanding it, she realized that Hiro truly carried a deep regret inside himself. Hiro said he'd thought it through, and swore he would never again make a decision that would hurt Liz while she was happy by his side. Even without fully understanding the situation, Liz chose to forgive him, only asking that he never repeat something like that again. Relieved by her words, Hiro ended up hugging Liz tightly, thanking her with total sincerity. While embracing Liz, Hiro promised that he would never let her go again. After realizing the romantic atmosphere he had created, he quickly pulled away. Liz was left completely embarrassed. Even while nervous, she ended up reminding him that the two of them were now officially lovers, though for a moment she'd believed Hiro was going to kiss her. Later, Liz, still blushing, reminded Hiro that the two of them were now engaged, lovers. So kissing, or even going beyond that, should come naturally between them. As she inched closer, timid at first, she confessed she had always wanted to experience moments like that by his side, and Hiro was left completely speechless by Liz's unexpectedly bold attitude. When Liz tried to go even further, Hiro panicked and immediately stopped her, and Liz's confidence faltered. Hiro, thinking maybe he didn't like her in that way, was about to, until Hiro denied it right away, blushing deeply. He declared that precisely because he loved her, he wanted to treat her carefully, and in that instant, he decided to make clear just how sincere his feelings for Liz truly were. Hiro explained that, in the world he came from, anyone who advanced physically toward an underage person would be considered a criminal, even though adulthood in that kingdom began at 15 years old. Despite liking Liz, he still couldn't fully accept that. Liz understood his feelings and realized that once Hiro decides something, he rarely changes his mind. Liz insisted that at least a kiss should be allowed, but Hiro fell into despair at the thought that if he gave in, he might completely lose self-control. Even as he tried to assure her that he would handle things properly from then on, he refused any further advances in that moment. In the end, Liz accepted his decision, saying she would eagerly wait until that day arrived. While Liz asked when Hiro would give the Viscount his answer about becoming a baron, Hiro was fighting to maintain self-control in the face of her cuteness. Hiro realized there was little more than a month left until the end of the year, the period when the national budget would be decided, so he had to make a decision soon, even though he was already leaning toward accepting. Accepting the position of baron, he wanted to speak first with the duke responsible for the proposal before giving a final answer. Liz asked how Hiro intended to convince the duke, and she grew curious when he revealed he wanted to increase the number of allies. Before the budget meeting, however, Hiro decided to keep the plan secret for the time being, only promising to begin preparations the following day. Before leaving, Liz happily commented that he seemed to have returned to normal, leaving Hiro watching her walk away with a peaceful smile. Alone once again, Hiro reflected on how his new life finally seemed to be truly beginning. In his old world, he believed nothing would change even after many years, but now he could barely imagine what the following year in that place would be like. Even so, thinking about the future he wanted to build alongside Liz, Hiro decided that he would do whatever was necessary to protect that happiness. The following morning, Hiro appeared with a much lighter expression, something that immediately caught Liz's attention. She commented that he seemed renewed, like someone who had finally organized his feelings. While Hiro tried to swallow his embarrassment, Liz couldn't help smiling, happy to see him slipping right back into the gentle hero act she'd always known. Hiro went to the woodworking shop with a fresh idea, explaining it alongside a detailed drawing. He asked them to make small, round, and square pieces of uniform size, then paint each side in different colors. The craftsman caught on at once, even suggesting molds and enlisting the help of a blacksmith to speed up production. Once the order's details were settled, Hiro paid in advance and added a few modifications of his own, including turning part of the box into a drawer for storing the pieces. The craftsman approved the plan and remarked that kind of wood would be perfect for small items. After a long stretch of organizing everything at the workshop, Hiro left satisfied with the progress and headed off to visit the blacksmith. Walking beside Liz, Hiro caught sight of the bracelet on her arm, and a strange familiarity jolted through him, like he'd seen it somewhere before. Liz lit up at once and explained, cheerfully, that it was the engagement bracelet made by Deed. In that kingdom, it was customary for the man to present a bracelet during the engagement. After the wedding, the accessory would be melted down and remade into the couple's wedding rings. The moment he heard that, Hiro froze. The memory slammed into his mind like a brutal shock, widening his eyes with raw despair. And then he understood, far too late, that he'd completely forgotten the engagement bracelet he had promised to give Liz.